Chapter 8:15. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Dawn broke in the east, and the first rays of the morning sun appeared. The young commandery princess woke up. Unlike adults, children wanted to stay in bed for a while. The young commandery princess sat up in a daze and climbed down from the bed. Huh? Where is this? Wet nurse. She walked out of the room barefooted. Looking at the unfamiliar corridor and courtyard, she was stunned. Before she could cry out of fear, little Jing Kong finished his morning practice and came over. Light Shui. The young commandery princess turned around in a daze. Jing Kong. Jing Kong ran over. Seeing her familiar friends, the young commandery princess forgot her fear. The two little kids stood face to face, their little arms flapping behind their backs like two excited little chicks. Light Shui. Jing Kong. Light Shui. Jing Kong. The courtyard was filled with their little chattering voices, and her aunt lay on the bed, hopelessly. When you go back to Zhao country, don't bring that little loudspeaker with you. Otherwise, she will die. Gu Chengfeng slept until the afternoon. He had ordered in advance that no one would disturb him. His behavior was a bit out of character. After all, the crown prince always looked very diligent. He often ate and slept late, which was something that had never happened before. But no matter how strange it was, no one would guess that the crown prince had changed. After Gu Chengfeng woke up, he went to the crown prince's study for a while. He wanted to find some evidence of the crown prince and the Han family, or the Han family and the Han family conspiring to rebel, but he didn't find much. The Han family didn't even tell the crown prince that the crown prince had changed the monarch. She probably hoped that her son's hands were clean. But her son wasn't clean for a long time. From the moment he ordered to assassinate Xiao Hang, he was already a vicious person. Only the Han family deceived herself and others, thinking that her son was still so innocent when he killed people. She was a pitiful woman. She obviously had a high IQ, but she always stumbled in front of her husband and son. Gu Chengfeng clicked his tongue and said, "If I say you're stupid, then you've come up with so many tricks. If I say you're smart, then you're blind to the monarch and the crown prince." At this time, Gu Chengfeng did not realize that it was his great-aunt and Gu Jiao who had unknowingly raised his expectations of the women of this dynasty. From birth, they had been instilled with the idea that men were superior. Once married, they would obey the husband. If the husband died, they would obey the son. For Han Shi to be able to make a move against the monarch was already going against the teachings she had held for many years. Cluck cluck cluck. On the windowsill, Little Nine fiercely used its wings to beat the window, indicating that it was time for Gu Chengfeng to take action. What a fierce little commander. Gu Chengfeng pursed his lips, changed into a set of dry clothes, and looked at himself in the bronze mirror. The reason why he didn't expose himself after saying so much was because Gu Jiao didn't put a mask on him, but a full head cover. His face was bruised and swollen to prevent his expression from being distorted. The disadvantage was that it was too stuffy. Forget it, for the sake of the great cause. Endure it. Gu Chengfeng picked 2 brocade guards to follow him into the palace, and also picked 2 eunuchs. The brocade guards could only enter the imperial court, but the eunuchs could be brought into the imperial harem. He rode a carriage to the imperial palace. When he passed by a dessert shop, he took the 2 eunuchs to personally pick out desserts for his imperial father. When the 3 of them came out of the dessert shop, the 2 eunuchs had been replaced. Regarding the plan to set things right, it didn't have to be complicated or grand to show that they had the means. Sometimes, using the smallest price to obtain the greatest victory was true wisdom. Although the crown prince had a bruised and swollen face, it could be seen from the outline that it was the crown prince. Along with the voice, token, and the eunuchs and brocade guards of the crown prince's residence, no one doubted his authenticity. The fake monarch was in the imperial court. "We're going to the imperial harem?" Gu Chengfeng asked. One of the eunuchs, the monarch, said lightly, "After the imperial court, He will go to the Hall of Harmony. Gu Chengfeng, oh. Then he couldn't go to the imperial harem. What a pity. He wanted to properly appreciate the beautiful scenery of the imperial harem of the Yen kingdom. A pair of palace maids passed by not far away. Gu Jiao pressed the monarch's head down. Can't you act a little more like a eunuch? She was quite valiant herself. The monarch, whose neck was almost broken, was speechless. I suspect that you did it on purpose, and I already have evidence. The three of them entered the Hall of Harmony. The steward of the Hall of Harmony was still Li Sandy. They didn't know if Li Sandy had been bribed by Madame Han, so they were very careful. You can leave. Gu Chengfeng said. Yes. Li Sandy bowed and looked strangely at the two eunuchs behind the crown prince. He felt that something was wrong. Do you have something else to say? Gu Chengfeng asked in a low voice. In reply to your highness, this servant has nothing else. This servant will leave first. Li Sandy retreated embarrassedly. He was already far away, but he couldn't help but mutter. Those two eunuchs looked unfamiliar. Were they the crown prince's new subordinates? Gu Jiao and the monarch were in disguise, but they didn't wear human skin masks, so their faces were unfamiliar with makeup. Gu Chengfeng sat comfortably in a chair, drinking tea and eating snacks. The monarch stood behind him respectfully, the corners of his mouth twitching. He looked at the back of Gu Chengfeng's head and wished that he could give him a big slap. After being the monarch for so many years, who would have thought that he would one day become a little eunuch? Gu Jiao signaled him with her eyes. Correct me, it's an old eunuch. The monarch's heart was filled with 10,000 arrows. The monarch finally realized how difficult it was to be a eunuch. After standing like this for half an hour, his old waist was about to break. Fortunately, the heavens didn't disappoint the faithful. The fake monarch left court. Li Sandy went to pay his respects to the fake monarch and reported that the crown prince had come to thank him. He was waiting in the side hall. The fake monarch nodded with a dignified face. I know. Go and tell the imperial kitchen that the crown prince will have lunch in Zhonghe Palace at noon. Listening to this familiar business ability, Gu Jiao and Gu Chengfeng almost thought that the one next to them was the fake one. The monarch gritted his teeth. I'm real. Gu Jiao, oh. Gu Chengfeng seconded. Oh. What does it matter if you're real or not? Anyway, it's enough to beat the Han family's monarch. The monarch again. The fake monarch entered the side hall. He was followed by the newly promoted Eunuch Yu. When Eunuch Yu saw the crown prince with a bruised nose and swollen face, he was slightly stunned. Your Royal Highness, you are... Gu Chengfeng sighed. Don't mention it. Last night, I encountered a wave of assassins. Fortunately, I came to the palace today to pay my respects to Imperial Father. As he spoke, he cupped his hands and bowed to the fake monarch. This son greets Imperial Father. This was the etiquette of the great Yen kingdom, which Shangguan Yen taught him for a long time. The fake monarch nodded with dignity. Yu Chongbua, go and call Imperial Dr. Liang, let him take a look at the crown prince. Yes. Eunuch Yu turned around and left, leaving Li Sandy and several eunuchs in the Zhonghe Palace to carefully serve him. Imperial Father. Gu Chengfeng said to the fake monarch, this son came here today because I have an important matter to report. Imperial Father, please dismiss your attendants. The fake monarch nodded and said to Li Sandy and the others, you can withdraw. Gu Jiao also made an appearance of withdrawing with the monarch. Gu Chengfeng stopped the monarch. Eunuch Li, you stay. You are an important witness. There are some things that you must personally report to Imperial Father. The monarch was openly left in the side hall. Gu Jiao guarded outside and didn't forget to close the door. Li Sandy smiled. What's your name? I haven't seen you before, but I feel that you are a bit familiar. Gu Jiao curved the corners of her lips. Eunuch Li has good eyesight. Li Sandy was stunned. In the side hall, the fake monarch looked at Gu Chengfeng and said, what do you want to report to me? Hearing the word Gu Chengfeng's goosebumps fell to the ground. The monarch coldly looked at the fake in front of him, his anger sinking as he said, Bold traitor! Quickly kneel before me! The prestige of the Son of Heaven shook all directions, the roar of dragons and tigers, nothing more. The fake monarch suddenly froze. Outside the door, Li Sandy looked at Gu Jiao with a dumbfounded expression. You are Shao Darren? Gu Jiao only has two voices, her original female voice and a juvenile voice. When Li Sandy heard this juvenile voice, he recognized that it was the former Xiao Lulang. He looked at Gu Jiao, and then looked at the closed door. Xiao Lulang was a person of the Duke Ongwa Fu, the confidant of third Princess Shangguan Yen. How could he be together with the Crown Prince? Before he could figure it out, there was the sound of fighting coming from inside. Li Sandy hurried to enter the room to protect the Emperor. Gu Jiao grabbed him. Eunuch Li, I haven't seen you for a long time. Let's talk, don't be anxious. You. Presumptuous. Li Sandy's voice hasn't faded yet. Not far away, Han She's stern voice came. Han She actually came out of the cold palace. She really couldn't wait. Han She was followed by a group of Imperial Guards. After Han Yi was removed from the position of Deputy Commander of the Imperial Guards, Han Fu took the position. He was a collateral descendant of the Han family, but because he was valued by Old Master Han, his status was almost the same as the direct descendants. Han She said to the Deputy Commander on the side, "Quickly go in and protect the Emperor." Yes. Deputy Commander Han received the order and led a large wave of Imperial Guards to rush into the side hall, surrounding Gu Changfeng and the real and fake Emperor. Han She walked over with a smile, looked at Gu Jiao, and then looked at Gu Changfeng inside the room. Do you really think that Bengong can't even recognize her own son? As she spoke, her eyes fell on the face of the Emperor, who was dressed as a eunuch, and the corner of her mouth hooked up. Bengong was worried about not being able to find him. This is really wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, but finding it without any effort. Xiao Lulang, you've been tricked. Gu Chengfeng's heart sank. It can't be, right? His peerless acting skills actually couldn't deceive this old witch? Then, didn't they walk right into the trap today? If he said that the one in their hands was the real emperor, no one would believe it. After all, he was a fake crown prince. If he said that he brought the real emperor, how could it be persuasive? It's over, it's completely over. They don't have any chance to turn the tables. Han She took in Gu Chengfeng's panic, looked up to the sky and laughed. Xiao Lulang, fighting against Bengong, you're still too inexperienced. Today, none of you can think of leaving alive. Gu Jiao faintly tilted her head, crossed her arms and looked at her. Are you sure? Do you want to turn back and look? Digression, third watch, rubbing your hands together, do you still have a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1060411174. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 816. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that could not be found online are all available here. Madame Han did not think that Xiao Lulang had any means to turn the situation around under the current circumstances. However, Xiao Lulang was too calm, so calm that she wondered if there was a flaw in her plan. She subconsciously turned her head and saw that Wang Su had rushed over at some point. Behind him was a large wave of guards from the commandery. Not only that, but outside the palace, There was the sound of uniform footsteps and the sound of cold armor rubbing against each other. In the next second, countless archers in armor rushed in under the scorching sun with large bows in their hands. Every one of them drew their bows and nocked an arrow. They knelt, walked, and waited. Even the commanding heights at the corners of the walls were occupied by the archers. Back then, the Wang family had also divided the military power of the Shenyuan family. Among them, the most eye-catching one was this archery unit. The archery unit had gone through 15 years of changes and had changed a lot of blood. However, the legacy of the Shenyuan family had always been there. It still had the most well-trained archers in Great Yen. As soon as the murderous aura of the archers appeared, the atmosphere at the scene immediately changed. The arrogance of the imperial guards weakened at a visible speed. Of course, this did not mean that the imperial guards could not defeat the archery unit. In terms of numbers, the imperial guards still had the advantage. However, the morale of the archery unit was so strong that no one was willing to easily meet them head-on. Moreover, Wang Su had not only brought the archery unit, but also the imperial guards of the 4 commanderies. In this way, the advantage of the imperial guards was not obvious. Madame Han did not expect that the person who came would be Wang Su. Yes, His Majesty's most loyal minister. How could she forget him? Not only did Madame Han forget, even the monarch himself had forgotten. After so many things had happened, the monarch's mind was muddled. If the crown prince had not mentioned it, he would not have remembered that he still had Wang Su in his hands. Xiao Hang did not appear today, but the task of contacting Wang Su was completed by him. Before this, Wang Su had not met the monarch. Official Wang, I trust you have been well since we last met. Han She calmly greeted him. Wang Su politely clasped his hands. It was not the greeting of an official to the imperial concubine. It was merely the etiquette of a junior greeting an elder. After all, Han She had already been demoted to a commoner. Wang Su really did not need to respect a commoner as a monarch. However, leaving the cold palace without permission was a crime punishable by death if His Majesty held him accountable. Everyone inside, come out. Wang Su looked at the side chamber and said with dignity. According to the plan that Gu Changfeng knew, he was supposed to kill the fake monarch in the side hall and let the real monarch take his place. Then he would destroy the corpse's appearance and transport it out of the palace as an old eunuch of the crown prince's mansion. But now that things had gotten out of hand, this move naturally wouldn't work. Otherwise, if things went wrong, they would be accused of murdering the real emperor and finding a fake emperor to replace him. Gu Changfeng had no choice but to let go of the fake monarch that he was rubbing against on the ground and open the palace door. The fake monarch used his anger to hide the shock in his heart and walked out angrily. Standing in the corridor, he looked coldly at Wang Su and said sternly, Wang Su, you secretly brought soldiers into the palace. Do you want to rebel? The monarch also said to Wang Su, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and take them down. Wang Su looked at the fake monarch and then looked at the real monarch. He cursed in his heart. These two people were too similar. Except for one wearing the clothes of a eunuch and the other wearing a dragon robe. On the way here, he was especially confident. Someone was pretending to be the monarch? What was there to be afraid of? He had sharp eyes and could definitely distinguish between the real and the fake. But now, his face was slapped. His face was swollen. Han She saw Wang Su's confused face and her hanging heart fell to the ground. She thought that Wang Su believed Shangguan Qing's slanderous words and came to capture the fake monarch, but it turned out that he couldn't tell the difference at all. That's right. Wang Su was only loyal to the monarch and would not be easily swayed by Shangguan Qing. He had his own judgment. Now, it all depended on who could take Wang Su down. The monarch took a deep breath and suppressed his tumbling emotions. He said seriously, Wang Su, I once ordered you to go to the imperial mausoleum to teach the imperial grandson martial arts. 3 months later, you returned to the palace and reported to me that the imperial grandson's body was weak and could not practice martial arts. However, the imperial grandson is very smart. Why not invite a few teachers to sit at the banquet for him? I agreed. In the end, he angered 8 teachers and sent them away. Wang Su's body shook. That's right. It was true. Moreover, because the monarch couldn't bring himself to lose face, he didn't want people to know that he cared so much about Shangguan Qing, so he didn't publicize this matter. Gu Jiao touched her chin. Oh, angered 8 teachers and sent them away? Shangguan Qing suddenly had this kind of dark history. The fake monarch said calmly, Wang Su, I once sent you to investigate the case of the Yudong flood. You handed me a list of names. Because it involved a lot of people, I suppressed this matter. You were not happy and even spoke out against me. I said to you, I'll pretend that I didn't hear what you said just now. But Wang Su, remember, I can tolerate it once or twice, but there won't be a third time. It doesn't matter if you die, but don't stop the whole Wang family from being buried with you. Wang Su's body shook again. He had never mentioned this matter to anyone. Gu Jiao thought, Han She had an hun in her hands. It was not impossible for her to monitor the movements in the imperial study. However, Wang Su didn't know the existence of an hun. Therefore, in his opinion, this kind of private conversation was not known by a third person. The monarch gritted his teeth and directly made a big move. 10 years ago, you traveled incognito with me and accidentally lost your travel expenses. You went to the village to steal a chicken. Everyone was stunned. The monarch actually stole a chicken. The fake monarch didn't want to be outdone. Every year when I hunt, I can't catch any prey. It was you who hunted it and hung it on my horse. Everyone's jaws dropped. The monarch not only stole the chicken, he also cheated. No wonder you always come first, second, third. The monarch was exposed. He was so angry that his soul was trembling. He couldn't expose himself anymore. He decisively started to expose Wang Su. You stutter. The fake monarch, you pick your feet. The monarch, you don't behave well when you're drunk. The fake monarch, you don't behave well when you gamble. Wang Su. How did it become exposing my shortcomings? Also, I haven't stuttered for many years. I only stuttered when I first met the emperor. Wait. In a flash, Wang Su had a flash of inspiration and gestured for the two to stop. I remember something. When I was teaching His Highness Zhongsun martial arts in the Imperial Mausoleum, His Highness Zhongsun told me a secret of His Majesty in order to please me by doing less of the horse stance. The real and fake monarchs all looked at Wang Su. Wang Su coughed a little embarrassedly and braced himself to say, His Majesty has a mole on his right butt. Pfft. In the crowd, someone couldn't help but laugh. Everyone turned to look at him. It was an archer from the Wang family. The archer switched to a serious expression in a second. He pulled the bow fully, as if the person who laughed just now wasn't him. The monarch clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. The corners of his mouth twitched. Shangguan Qing, I'm going to kill you. A trace of panic flashed through the fake monarch's eyes. He didn't say that he had to pretend to be like this. What, he had to plant a mole on his butt. Han frowned. Although she had been married to His Majesty for many years, the lights were off when she served him in bed. She really didn't pay attention to this. Speaking of which, what kind of naughty child was Shangguan Qing? How could he say such things casually? She had miscalculated. Han certainly understood that with Wang Su's straightforward and honest personality, it was impossible for him to fabricate such a thing out of thin air. So it was true. His Majesty's but really had that kind of thing. Han closed her eyes. Don't panic. Don't panic. There must be a way to resolve it. Han opened her eyes. Her gaze fell on Wang Su's embarrassed face. She laughed sarcastically and said, Lord Wang, when you taught His Highness Zhongsun in the Imperial Mausoleum, His Highness Zhongsun was just a child. How could you take a child's nonsense seriously? Han originally wanted to say that she had been married to His Majesty for many years. How could she not know if His Majesty had a mole on his body? But if she said this, Wang Su would definitely invite the other concubines. She didn't pay attention, but it didn't mean that the other concubines didn't pay attention. If someone happened to confirm Wang Su's words, the fake monarch would be completely exposed. so she could only insist that Shangguan Qing was young and was talking nonsense. Han Shi said with a smile that was not a smile, "Official Wang, could it be that you are in cahoots with them? Are you deliberately using this to prove that His Majesty is a fake monarch?" Wang Su solemnly said, "I'm not in cahoots with anyone. I'm only loyal to His Majesty." Han sneered, "But His Majesty clearly doesn't have what you said. And I don't mind telling you, this crown prince is a fake." They pretended to be the crown prince in front and then found someone who looked similar to him to pretend to be the monarch. You must not fall into their trap. Gu Chengfeng exploded. "Hey! I pretended to be the crown prince so that I could enter the palace and overthrow you. You old hag substituted the plum tree for the peach tree. You're the guilty one who accuses the victim first." Han said, "Lord Wang, he admitted it. The words of His Highness Zhongxuan's child are not to be trusted. You should quickly arrest this group of rebels and bring them to justice." Wang Su's expression became complicated. Gu Chengfeng heard the footsteps of death. It's over, Wang Su is also going to fall into that old hag's trap. If the words of His Highness Zhongxuan's child are not to be trusted, then what about this monarch's words? Accompanied by a noble and low voice, a handsome and elegant man in a silver robe walked over with his head held high. Han Shi's expression changed. How could it be him? The person who came was none other than the monarch's younger brother, the young princess's father, Lord Yen Shan. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1060244497. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 817. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are available here. This invisible battle was too much for both sides to take in. If it could be said that the monarch had forgotten about Wang Su in a moment of hot-headedness, then Han Shi had neglected Yen Shanjun in a moment of carelessness. She only cared about guarding against Shangguan Yen, Shangguan Qing, and the state preceptor's hall. Why did this happen? First, it was her own negligence. The other reason was that Yen Shanjun was not in Chengdu. Even if he was, his presence was very low. Although he was favored by the king, he built his mansion in the outer city. Was there such a carefree prince? Han Shi's heart flashed with panic. The development of the situation was somewhat out of her control. If she could successfully slander Shangguan Yen and the state preceptor's hall because she had prepared a witness in advance, what would Yen Shanjun say? He was innocent. Even if she accused Yen Shanjun and Shangguan Yen of being in cahoots, Yen Shanjun could turn around and accuse her of having bad intentions with the crown prince. Yen Shanjun was indifferent to fame and fortune. He never participated in the struggle of the imperial court, but he had a very good relationship with the king. Because of this, his words were often more persuasive. Don't panic, don't panic. Yen Shanjun had no evidence. The worst situation was that both sides would stick to their words. There was still a chance to win. She winked at the fake king. The fake king understood and showed a look of joy. He breathed a sigh of relief. Chen, you came back at the right time. Chen, is not for you to call me that. The king coldly glared at the fake king, and then he looked at Yen Shanjun lightly. You brat, don't tell me you can't even recognize who your brother is. This. Yen Shanjun scratched his head. Although he was over 30 years old, in the eyes of everyone, Yen Shanjuan's temperament was not very mature. Otherwise, he would not always leave his daughter and go out for a stroll. He smiled. You two look exactly the same. Your voices and aura are also similar. It's really difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. But the mole that Wang Su mentioned. The fake monarch said unhurriedly, Chen you don't know. I was injured a few years ago, and it happened to be there. That mole is gone. These words were very serious. Wang Su had taught Shangguan Qing martial arts several years ago. Since it was said at that time, it had been a long time since then. He had been injured a few years ago. With the help of the top-notch recovery medicine from the Imperial Preceptor Hall, it was not difficult for him to treat his wounds until they were invisible. As for when Yen Shanjun saw this mole, it was before Yen Shanjun left the palace to build his mansion. After that, Yen Shanjun didn't return to the palace for more than 10 years. The fake monarch sighed. Because the injury was not in the right place, I ordered the imperial physician to keep his mouth shut. If Chen does not believe me, you can call Imperial Physician Liang over. This Imperial Physician Liang was one of Madame Han's people, so he would definitely make a false witness for him. Han She was very satisfied. This puppet still had some skills of its own. The fake monarch's mocking gaze fell on the real monarch's face, and he said with a strong aura, You didn't expect it, did you? My mole is long gone. Even if you used some unknown method to get an identical mole on your buttocks, it only proves that you are a fake who came to impersonate me. Well, I'll interrupt you. Yen Shanjun raised his hand and said to the fake monarch, My imperial brother originally didn't have a mole on his buttocks. The fake monarch was stunned. What? No mole? This time, not only was he surprised, even Wang Su was confused, but His Highness Zhongsun personally told me that your majesty had a mole on his right buttocks. Yen Shanjun looked at him strangely. You believe the nonsense of a child. Wang Su, who was choked into a mute in a second. To be honest, the monarch really didn't have a mole on his buttocks, so the monarch was angry. How did that brat Shangguan Qing make up stories about him? Just to avoid a horse stance, a mole grew on his buttocks. Then what if he encountered other training? Would he grow sores on the soles of his feet? This indecent little thing, how many stories did he make up about him behind his back? When he came back, if he didn't beat him to death, the heavens wouldn't tolerate it. Now that things had developed to this point, as long as the people present weren't blind or deaf, the fake monarch had already exposed himself in front of everyone. Yen Shanjun had been raised by the monarch, so he definitely wouldn't be mistaken about whether or not the monarch had a mole. He wasn't taking sides. The fake monarch was feeling guilty and anxious, so he confessed without being pressed. He clearly didn't have a mole, but he thought the monarch had one, so he swore that he had gotten the mole removed due to an accident. He even laughed that the real monarch's mole had been made with some method. He really was full of nonsense. Even a novel wouldn't dare write this. Yen Shanjun said to the monarch seriously, I want to see if you have a mole on your buttocks. The monarch said expressionlessly, We think you want to die. All right, you're my royal brother. Yen Shanjun looked at the fake monarch, pointed to the real monarch, and said, You see, my royal brother is very fierce to me. He's not as benevolent as you think. With the fake monarch full of flaws, and with Yen Shanjuan's testimony, Wang Su made a prompt decision and ordered people to arrest the fake monarch and Lady Han. Gu Chengfeng was quite surprised. Wang Su didn't look that smart, but when it was time to be decisive, he was never careless. Perhaps this was the reason why the monarch put him in an important position. Wang Su said sternly, Imperial guards, you'd better not obstruct, or you'll be punished for the crime of rebellion. Some people in the Imperial Guards hesitated. The deputy commander, Han Fu, couldn't be arrested without putting up a fight. Especially at this stage, the soldiers below might be exempted, but the soldiers above them would definitely be put to death. He pulled out the long sword at his waist. Protect the Empress and His Majesty. Kill our way out. With his order, the Imperial Guards in the front row immediately pulled out their long swords and surrounded Lady Han and the fake monarch. When the others saw this, they were influenced and also pulled out their swords to follow. The monarch's face darkened. These were all soldiers of the Yen kingdom, but they were going to fight on the battlefield. Wang Su and his deputy blocked the monarch and Yen Shanjun respectively. Then he raised his hand and said with a determined look, "Archers, get ready." The bowstrings were pulled to the fullest, making a tight creaking sound. The scene was suddenly filled with a strong murderous aura. Han Fu said loudly, "Kill them." Wang Su waved his hand. "Release the arrows." The Imperial Guards fell one by one, and screams intertwined. On Wang Su's side, it wasn't a one-sided victory. There were some brave soldiers in the Imperial Guards, and they successfully protected the fake monarch and Lady Han and rushed out of the Zhonghe Palace. Gu Jiao climbed up the rockery in 3 steps and used the momentum to jump onto the roof. She said to an archer beside her, "Give me the bow." "Who are you? Why should I give it to you?" The archer obediently gave the bow to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao pulled the bow with her right hand and pulled the arrow with her left hand. She aimed at the direction the fake monarch escaped and shot an arrow through his heart. The archer was stunned. At such a long distance, at such a tricky angle, how did a little eunuch like him hit the target? Even if it was half an inch off, it would have hit the neck of the Imperial Guard from the rearguard commandery. The fake monarch fell to the ground, and a drop of blood splashed out. Lady Han immediately cried out in alarm. "Your Majesty!" She couldn't lose her biggest chess piece. She turned back to help him, but Han Fu grabbed her arm. Han Fu gritted his teeth and said, "Your Highness, it's too late. Leave quickly." Lady Han said unwillingly, "But His Majesty Han Fu said loudly, "he is not His Majesty. He can't be saved." Lady Han looked at the fake monarch lying in a pool of blood with red eyes. This was the chess piece she had spent more than 10 years carefully cultivating. How could he be so easily destroyed? She didn't even have time to use him properly. She didn't want to. She didn't want to. Han Fu cut down an Imperial Guard from the rearguard commandery. "Your Highness, if you don't leave now, you really will die here." Gu Jiao knocked an arrow again. The bowstring was pulled to its limit, making people feel like it would break at any moment. The archer to the side even held his breath. Most archers used a 1-pickle bow. Divine archers used 2 pickles, but this bow was nearly 3 pickles. How could someone pull it to this degree? How much strength did this require? Gu Jiao aimed at Lady Han. There were too many people on her side, so she would always inadvertently block Lady Han. Gu Jiao closed one eye and suddenly shot an arrow up. Where was this little eunuch going to shoot? The archer quickly looked over and saw that the arrow had snapped a tree branch. The tree branch snapped with a snap and landed squarely on Han Shi's body. "Ah!" Lady Han gave a pitiful cry and was smashed to the ground by the branch. "Your Highness." Han Fu dealt with the surrounding Imperial Guards while moving closer to Lady Han. The archer had already stopped wondering why a little eunuch knew how to shoot arrows. He obediently handed over an arrow. Gu Jiao shot an arrow at Lady Han's head. Ka! A sword light slashed out, forcefully cutting off the arrow that Gu Jiao shot out. It was an Han. And Han pushed aside the tree trunk that was pressing down on Madame Han and pulled out 2 arrows that were stuck in the corpses of the Imperial Guards. He suddenly turned around and threw them at Gu Jiao. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428226/1060222981. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 818. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. And Hun's strength was fast and fierce. Although he did not have a bow, it was still much faster than a normal hidden weapon. The archer noticed this expert's actions. The arrow seemed to be aimed at the eunuch beside him, but it would also hurt him. But the arrow was too fast. He could not dodge it. The archer's body froze on the spot. Gu Jiao grabbed him and dodged to the side. The two arrows flew past the roof where the two of them were originally hiding. With a terrifying force, the arrows nailed into the eaves behind, cutting off a piece of the eaves. When the archer saw this scene, he swallowed hard. He could not imagine that if this eunuch did not react quickly, his head would have been cut off. And Hun's main goal was to save Miss Han. The two arrows just now were a warning to Gu Jiao and also to buy time for his rescue. He did not continue to tangle with Gu Jiao. He brought Miss Han, and under the protection of Han Fu and the others, he killed his way out of the encirclement. Gu Jiao would not let him leave so easily. In the 3 years of internal strife in her dream, although the instigator was Miss Han, and Han also contributed a lot. Many aristocratic families came to assassinate Miss Han, but because of Han's interference, they all failed. To kill Miss Han, she must first kill Han. Gu Jiao grabbed the bow. "Give me the quiver." "Yes." The archer immediately handed the quiver on his back to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao took the quiver and quickly ran in the direction where Miss Han and Han left. The archer suddenly reacted. "Wait, what did I mean when I said, yes? He is just a eunuch. How can I bow down and listen to his orders?" He even handed over his bow and arrow obediently. "Hey, be careful. Damn it." What he wanted to say was, "Give it back to me." Why did it suddenly change when it was at the tip of his tongue? On the ground, there was an endless stream of soldiers from the rearguard commandery and the Wang family. It was not easy for Han to bring Han Shi along. Once he used his Qing Gong to soar into the air, he was like a live target exposed to Gu Jiao. At first, Han didn't realize how accurate Gu Jiao's archery skills were. Who would have thought that when he used his Qing Gong for the first time, Gu Jiao's arrow pierced through his sleeve? Han frowned. Before Gu Jiao could shoot the second arrow, he struck out a palm towards Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao had already anticipated that he would retaliate, so she immediately dodged after shooting the first arrow. There was no second arrow at all. This is what I call predicting your prediction. On the other hand, Gu Jiao rolled around on the roof. It looked like she was dodging, but in fact, she was secretly pulling the bowstring. The moment she stabilized herself on one knee, the arrow in her hand left the bowstring and shot one of the Han family's trusted aides. He screamed and fell to the ground. The rearguard commandery soldiers in front of him heard the scream and turned around. Only then did they realize that this person was holding a sword in his hand. It was obvious that he was trying to sneak an attack on them. He looked at the eunuch on the roof who saved his life and nodded gratefully. Then he put more effort into killing the enemy. Gu Jiao continued to chase after Han. In terms of martial arts, Gu Jiao, who had not recovered her full strength, was not Han's match. However, Gu Jiao's archery skills were superb. Even someone as strong as Han was suppressed by Gu Jiao's archery skills. This was something that Han did not expect. He originally thought that he was just a soldier who made a name for himself in the Black Wind camp. He didn't expect him to be an archer with godly strength. This kid seemed to be born for the battlefield. Han no longer jumped up to be Gu Jiao's living target. He led Han Shi and killed their way out from the ground. Gu Jiao couldn't kill Han, so she killed the Han family's trusted aides. As Han Fu fought, he faintly felt that something was wrong. However, when he turned around, the Han family's trusted aides around him had all been shot. Han Fu's first reaction was that the Wang family's archers were so powerful. If he had known, he would have taken the archery unit into his hands. However, in the next second, he realized that the person who killed so many of his trusted aides wasn't the Wang family's archers. It was the eunuch who escorted the monarch into the palace. Sweat dripped down and washed away the disguise on Gu Jiao's face. Han Fu saw the red birthmark on the left side of her face. His eyes trembled. Xiao Lulang. As a trusted aide of the Han family, he gritted his teeth at the new commander of the Black Wind Camp. Not only did he see the real person during the selection, he also saw Gu Jiao's portrait in private. This kid was the nightmare of the Han family. After Han Fu injured an imperial guard with his sword, he planned to chase after Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao ignored him. She was no match for him. Wang Su flew up and blocked Han Fu with his sword. Surnamed Han, don't even think about escaping. Han Fu was tightly entangled by Wang Su and couldn't escape. The two of them crossed swords and soon, they were engaged in a bloody battle. The Imperial Guards of the Rearguard Commandery and the Wang family's archery unit were almost one-sided against the Imperial Guards led by Han Fu. Gu Jiao wasn't worried about the situation in the palace. She directly chased after An Han and Han Shi. She chased out of the palace. The Black Wind King was already waiting outside. She grabbed the reins and nimbly jumped onto the horse. The Black Wind King chased after An Han's aura. An Han didn't choose to enter the bustling streets. Instead, he turned into an old street with few people. It didn't look good for hiding, but it was easier to escape because the roads were clear. When Gu Jiao chased An Han to an abandoned winery, she and the Black Wind King clearly felt an unusual murderous aura. Gu Jiao tightened the reins and the person and horse came to a stop. The surroundings were very quiet. Even the sound of the wind seemed to have stopped. Gu Jiao could clearly hear her and the Black Wind King's breathing. Suddenly, there was a sudden movement from the east. Gu Jiao quickly drew her bow and aimed at the east. However, she suddenly shot towards a thatched roof in the southeast. A figure suddenly flew out from behind the roof. It was An Han. An Han's eyes flashed with surprise. "Kid, you didn't fall for it. I have a whole new level of respect for your archery skills. Why don't you kneel down and kowtow to me and call me master? I don't want your life." Gu Jiao took out an arrow from the quiver on her back and put it on the bowstring. "I think you should be the one kowtowing." "How arrogant. Take this." An Han opened his arms and flew up. His black robe fluttered in the wind. He was like a bloodthirsty bat, attacking Gu Jiao mercilessly. Gu Jiao sat on the horse and didn't dodge. An Han's eyes flashed with surprise, but he didn't stop. Seeing that he was about to hit Gu Jiao, a fist suddenly appeared from behind Gu Jiao and collided with An Han's palm. An Han's arm went numb. He frowned and somersaulted in the air and landed outside the winery. When he saw the other person's appearance, he snorted coldly. "It's you again." Long Yi stood in front of Gu Jiao and looked at him expressionlessly. An Han sneered. "You really don't remember anything. You don't even recognize me." He looked at Gu Jiao and said to Long Yi again, "Don't be fooled by this group of people. You and I are in the same camp. I am your senior brother. You failed your mission that year. If I were you, I would obediently go back and ask for forgiveness. Get out of the way and don't interfere. I can pretend that you didn't collude with the people of Zhao all these years. When I go back, I won't expose you." Long Yi didn't get out of the way. An Han's eyes darkened. "It seems that you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think that I can't beat you? You look down on me too much." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly activated his whole body's internal force. Gu Jiao was very sensitive to the aura of death soldiers. She clearly felt that An Han's aura was much stronger than before. How could he improve so quickly in just a few days? Although it was true that the Death Warrior had become stronger through repeated breakthroughs, the extent to which he had become stronger was simply too shocking. Was it related to the purple grass poison that he had been infected with? If it was true, then Long Yi was at a disadvantage. In these years, in order to improve his strength, An Han had many life and death duels with people. Long Yi didn't have such an opportunity in Zhao country. Sure enough, in this round of confrontation, An Han obviously had the upper hand. In order to end the battle quickly, An Han pulled out his sword from his waist. Long Yi also pulled out his sword. This was the first time that Gu Jiao saw Long Yi use his sword. These two were worthy of being senior brothers. Their swordsmanship was exactly the same. Both of them focused on speed. Often, before one move was finished, the other had already followed. Gu Jiao's eyes turned very quickly. She simply couldn't keep up with them. Such fast swordsmanship. Just from the confrontation, and Han had the upper hand no matter if it was in terms of moves or internal force. And Han's sword slashed at Long Yi's left arm. Long Yi swung his sword to block. And Han coldly said, "I have been practicing martial arts diligently all these years. I thought that if you didn't die, I would beat you fair and square." After he finished speaking, he kicked Long Yi's stomach. Who would have thought that he didn't kick Long Yi? Instead, his arm was cut by Long Yi's sword. And Han frowned. Looking at the blood flowing out from his left arm, he gritted his teeth and said, "I was really careless." Gu Jiao deliberately provoked him. "What careless? You can't beat Long Yi. What's the use of training so hard for so many years? You still can't beat Shi Tian, who lost his memory." And Han was poked in his sore spot. His heart stagnated and he almost got hit by Long Yi's sword again. He angrily said, "Stinking brat. You shut up." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and said, "You can't say that you can't beat him? Then you might as well not fight. Just tuck your tail between your legs and obediently leave. Wait until you go back and train for another 8 to 10 years. Let's see whether you can barely tie with Long Yi or not. I reckon that it will be a little difficult." And Han was a proud and arrogant death soldier. He had lived under the shadow of Shi Tian all his life. Shi Tian was his devil. He couldn't tolerate other people saying that he was inferior to Shi Tian. That was 20 years ago. "I will no longer be Shi Tian's defeated general." And Han gritted his teeth and said the last sentence. He circulated his internal force and stabbed his sword towards Long Yi's heart. However, he was disturbed too much. His breath was unstable. Long Yi had already seen through his move. Long Yi swung his sword backhandedly and sent his long sword flying. This sword was the beginning of all nightmares. And Han was thoroughly enraged. His malicious eyes were filled with blood qi. His breath began to change. Gu Jiao was too familiar with this breath. And Han, he was about to lose control. The state preceptor said that people who were poisoned by purple grass poison would more or less lose control. Usually, it was in a life and death situation. However, there were exceptions. Gu Jiao frowned. This guy, is he planning to perish together with Long Yi? The Black Wind King also instinctively sensed danger, and his muscles tensed up without batting an eyelid. And Han suddenly pounced on Long Yi. He snatched his sword and sent him flying to the ground. He quickly flashed to Long Yi's side. He grabbed Long Yi's lapel and punched Long Yi's body again and again. Each of his punches carried a terrifying amount of internal force. Gu Jiao heard the sound of bones breaking. Long Yi was completely suppressed by an Han who had lost control. What was even more frightening was that Gu Jiao also felt the change in Long Yi's breath. She didn't know whether it was because of an Han's breath or because of her instinctive protection. Long Yi was also about to lose control. Long Yi looked at an Han with bloodshot eyes. Every punch that landed on his body seemed to be prying open the shackles that were suppressing his killing intent. Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. She took out an arrow from her back, pulled the bowstring, and shot an arrow through an Han's thigh. And Han was in such a state. This kind of small injury was nothing. He didn't even feel any pain. However, he didn't allow himself to be provoked. He threw away Long Yi in his hand and sent a palm strike towards Gu Jiao. Black Wind King wanted to leave with Gu Jiao. Unfortunately, it was too late. Gu Jiao was hit by the wind from his palm. She was sent flying and heavily hit the wall of the winery. She fell to the ground, and the stone wall collapsed with a loud bang, pressing down on her. However, Gu Jiao wasn't buried by the collapsed wall. Long Yi used his tall body to protect her. Gu Jiao looked at his eyes, which were filled with blood mist. She also looked at the blood mist that was slowly dissipating. Long Yi panted. He didn't lose control. He didn't change back to the beast that only knew how to kill. Long Yi carried Gu Jiao and walked out. He used his qinggong to jump up and gently placed Gu Jiao back on the back of Black Wind King. Then, he charged towards An Hun like a bolt of lightning and punched An Hun's chest with lightning speed. An Hun didn't have time to dodge and was smashed to the ground. Long Yi sent another punch. This time, his ribs were broken and his lungs were pierced. His breathing became rapid. The huge pain and the loss of internal force made him gradually regain consciousness. He looked at Long Yi in disbelief. Indeed, there was killing intent in Long Yi's eyes. However, it wasn't the killing intent after losing control. Oh, why? Why was it like this? Why was he able to defeat him when he was sober? You can't win me. But before he could finish speaking, Long Yi twisted his neck with a backhand, and with a gotcha sound, his neck was broken. An Hun fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. It was as if he didn't understand how he lost. He didn't lose to the death warrior Shirtion. He lost to a person called Long Yi. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8264286/1060000737. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 819. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. In this duel, Long Yi consumed a lot of energy. Not only was it caused by fighting back and forth, but when suppressing the uncontrollable killing intent, the pain Long Yi endured and the temptation he had to resist was unimaginable to ordinary people. This was the most damaging to his vitality. Long Yi gasped for breath and looked up at the endless blue dome of heaven. Gu Jiao got off the horse and came to his side. Turning her head, she looked at him and said, "Long Yi, what are you looking at? Did you remember something? You are injured, ride Black Wind King and go back." In the next second, Gu Jiao was picked up by Long Yi. Gu Jiao's face instantly darkened. She looked like a little doll with her feet facing down. So just now, you were just gasping for breath? Sure enough, she shouldn't have worried about Long Yi. An Hun's strength was abnormal, but Long Yi's was even more abnormal. Long Yi brought Gu Jiao back to Duke Ongwa Mansion. On the other side, the struggle in the palace was also over. Han Fu was captured by Wang Su. When the Imperial Guard saw Han Fu was captured, their morale fell and they quickly surrendered. The only one left was Han Shi. After An Hun brought Han Shi out of the palace, he let Han Shi sit in the carriage prepared in advance. He stayed behind to kill Gu Jiao. But he didn't expect that not only would he fail, he would be killed by Long Yi instead. An Hun was the biggest card in Han Shi's hand. He was even more important than the fake emperor. If An Hun didn't work for Han Shi, how could Han Shi easily eavesdrop on the news in the imperial study? How could he allow the fake monarch to observe the real monarch in the dark? Even when Shangguan Yen was sold as a slave, An Hun had a part to play. Han Shi could lose the fake emperor, but Han Shi couldn't lose An Hun. Of course, Han Shi had absolute confidence in An Hun. Even if An Hun lost to that junior brother of the same sect last time, An Hun had become even more powerful because of this. After An Hun kills Xiao Lu Lang, he will be able to meet me. Han She thought this and let out a long sigh. She leaned against the wall of the carriage and closed her eyes to rest. But after a while, her eyelids suddenly twitched. Immediately after, she felt uneasy, as if something bad was about to happen. She frowned and said, "Did Xiao Lulang catch up?" "No, with an Hun blocking him, he wouldn't even know how he died." "I think you're the one who's dead." Gu Chengfeng descended from the sky and landed on Han She's carriage. He kicked off the carriage driver and mercilessly dragged Han She down from the carriage. Although he respected the elderly and loved the young, he could forget about this kind of vicious old witch. Gu Chengfeng did not control his strength and Han She was pulled down from the carriage. She fell and rolled a few times before coming to a stop. Her pearl hairpin fell off and her hair bun came loose. Her face was covered in dust and she was even worse off than the old beggar woman. Han She was in so much pain that she cried out. Gu Chengfeng disdainfully patted the hand that touched her and walked over to her. "After doing so many bad things, you still want to escape. Do you think you can escape?" Gu Chengfeng had already taken off the crown prince's mask and revealed his true face. But Han She still recognized him from his voice. Han She raised her eyes and looked at him coldly. "You're the one who pretended to be the crown prince last night? If you let me go, I can. Can your uncle?" Gu Chengfeng admitted that he was a chatterbox, but he was too lazy to waste his breath on an old witch like Han She. He directly grabbed Han She and threw her into the prison carriage that was already prepared. Han She sat in the prison carriage and her hands tightly gripped the wooden planks. "You will regret it." Gu Chengfeng rolled his eyes and hit her mute acupoint with 2 fingers. "You're about to die and you're still talking nonsense. I can't deal with you." Han She was taken back to the rearguard commandery and the change in the palace came to an end. Zhang Dequan was summoned back to the palace and cleaned up the mess of the war between Zhonghe Palace and the foreign court with the 12 supervisors. With such a big thing happening, the foreign court and aristocratic families were all alarmed. They all rushed to see the king, but the king did not receive any of them. The king ordered the court to be adjourned for 3 days and let the Supreme Court and Ministry of Justice investigate together. Investigate what? Naturally, it was to investigate Han She, the crown prince's residence, and the Han family. How many shameful things did they do behind the scenes? Lock up the Han family and the crown prince's residence. Not even a fly is allowed to leave. What was the original commander of the Imperial Guards doing? He actually let a deputy commander take away half of the troops. Punish him severely. And take back the Han family's command seal. The king issued earth-shattering orders in the imperial study. The various officers did not dare to be negligent and carried out their duties without stopping to complete the tasks given by the king. The moment they walked out of the imperial study, everyone understood that the Han family, which had been standing for many years, was about to fall. After 15 years, Shangdu once again welcomed a change in power. The top 10 aristocratic families were about to be reshuffled again. As the saying goes, seeing him rise, seeing him entertain guests, and seeing him collapse. Once the Han family fell, the military power was bound to be divided. However, whether the aristocratic families were complacent or grieving for the loss of their own kind was unknown. In the duke's residence, Gu Jiao was very happy. An Han was dead and Han She was captured. This meant that the 3 years of internal strife would not happen again. The wheel of fate quietly turned from this moment on. Next would be the external battles with the Jin nation and the state of Liang. It would be best if they could also avoid it. Young master, Prince Zhang's son. Gu Jiao was treating Long Yi's injuries when manager Zhang hurriedly entered the courtyard. He found Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng in Long Yi's room and saluted. His Majesty's order came from the palace, asking young master and Prince Zhang's son to go to the palace immediately. Gu Jiao wrapped the last bandage on Long Yi's body and told him not to move. Then, she entered the palace with Xiao Heng. In the imperial study, Shangguan Yan and Yan Shanjun were also there. Just now in the Zhonghe Palace, Gu Jiao was fully vigilant against an Han who could appear at any time, so she did not pay much attention to the little princess's father, Yan Shanjun. Now that she was in the mood to look at him, Gu Jiao found that he was a real beauty. Yen Shanjun was the son that the Empress Dowager had given birth to for the late emperor. He was younger than the monarch by almost 60 years. He was in his 30s this year, but perhaps because he had nothing on his mind, his eyes had the innocence and clarity of a young man. This made him look younger than his actual age. He had 2 big walnuts in his right hand, looking handsome and elegant. In addition, Gu Jiao also noticed a detail. His eyes were amber, lighter than ordinary people's eyes. "You are the first person who dares to stare at me like this." Yen Shanjun smiled and put his face in front of Gu Jiao. "How is it? Am I good-looking?" "Oh, not as good-looking as him." Gu Jiao pointed at Xiao Heng. Yen Shanjun. He was shocked. The king faintly glanced at the two and said, "Okay, I called you here for a serious matter." Yen Shanjun quickly adjusted his expression and became serious and solemn. It seemed that this younger brother was still in awe of the king. Shangguan Yen did not sit in a wheelchair today. Did they not need to disguise themselves? The first thing. The king looked at Shangguan Yen and said, "Where is Shangguan Qing?" Shangguan Yan's expression stiffened. She blinked guiltily and pointed at Xiao Heng. "Isn't he right here?" The king slapped the table with a cold face. "Do you really think that I can't recognize my grandson? Shangguan Qing doesn't eat fennel." "Oh, fennel. There was such a thing. The cook of the House of Duke would put fennel in the dishes. So it was the filling that was exposed in the past 2 days." The king stared at Shangguan Yen with disappointment. "You, as a mother, don't even know such a small thing." Shangguan Yen felt wronged and whispered, "I also didn't make fennel for him. How can I afford to eat such expensive spices? It was very hard to live in the imperial mausoleum, okay?" Yen Shanjun looked at Xiao Heng. "Isn't that Qing, er? They really look alike." The king looked at Xiao Heng with heavy eyes. "Who are you?" Yen Shanjun was also very curious about Xiao Heng's identity. He didn't avoid his eyes and waited for Xiao Heng's answer. Xiao Heng said calmly, "Who I am is not important. Your Majesty only needs to understand that everything is a temporary measure. The third princess and the crown prince's eldest grandson are deeply persecuted by the crown prince's residents, the Han family, and the Nangong family. They had no choice but to do this. The real imperial grandson is very safe. When everything calms down, the third princess will take him back to Chengdu." The king took a deep look at Xiao Heng. His hand on the armrest clenched a little. "It doesn't matter who you are?" "Yes. You don't want glory and wealth." "I don't want." "You don't want power and fame?" "I don't want." Xiao Heng looked straight into the monarch's eyes. There was not a trace of evasion in his gaze. He was magnanimous and spoke from the bottom of his heart. The king swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. The king angrily picked up the tea on the table and took a sip. Gu Jiao glared at the king fiercely. "You're fierce to my husband again. Try being fierce again. I'll beat you." Digression. Today is also the day I want the monthly ticket. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964289642826/1060000073. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 820. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The king received a threatening look from Gu Jiao. No, I'm scolding this kid, what does it have to do with you? So fierce. Are you a wolf? One by one, the monarch was so angry that his head hurt. Every time the monarch felt that this was the most infuriating thing in the world, these troublemakers would always do something even more infuriating. Shangguan Yen didn't need to be mentioned. She was a petty person. Shangguan Qing used to be well-behaved, docile, and lovable. However, when the mole on his butt incident came out, the king knew how indecent this little thing was behind his back. Who did he take after? Obviously, the Shangguan family and the Shenyuan family didn't have this kind of indecent tradition. However, Shangguan Qing and Shangguan Yen knew how to smooth things over. This kid, on the other hand, was stubborn. His attitude was simply arrogant. In the past, he used to call him Imperial Grandfather affectionately. But now that the Han family and the Crown Prince had fallen, he didn't even bother to pretend. The king gritted his teeth, turned his face, and coldly said, "All of you withdraw. I don't want to see you." Gu Jiao, oh. Shangguan Yen, oh. Xiao Hang was expressionless. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, as well as Xiao Hang, turned around and left without looking back. The king's pair of dragon eyes widened. That's it? That's it? Are you sure you don't want to fight? Yen Shanjun watched a big show. He bitterly touched the bridge of his nose and said, "If there's nothing else, this younger brother will also take his leave. You come back." The king shouted. One by one, they all left. He didn't want to lose face. Yen Shanjun helplessly spread out his hands. "Your Majesty, this younger brother hasn't seen Light Xue for many days. I miss her very much. Your Majesty won't prevent us father and daughter from meeting. If you have the ability, then don't go out all day long. Now you know how to be a father. What did you do before?" This was the king's most infuriated day. Everyone in the house, big and small, rushed to piss him off. But in the end, he didn't force Yen Shanjun to stay. He waved his hand and had him scram. After Yen Shanjun left, Zhang Dequan mustered up his courage and walked into the room. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Your Majesty, didn't you say that we will be rewarded based on merit?" "How? What happened to him?" The monarch gripped the armrest tightly and snorted coldly. "I don't care at all. Fame and fortune, a bright future, the country, all of it was nothing in his eyes. Even I." The monarch took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. "If you don't want it, then don't want it." "I don't want it either." Zhang Dequan was confused by what he heard. Why does His Majesty sound like he's angry with someone? What did Third Princess do to His Majesty again? This time, it was not Third Princess Shangguan Yen, but Xiao Heng. The monarch was so angry that he slammed his fist on the table. Zhang Dequan. At this point, there was no point in hiding Xiao Heng's identity. No matter whether the monarch guessed it or not in the imperial study today, Shangguan Qi would confess in a few days in the prison. Shangguan Qi instigated the Nangong family to pursue Xiao Heng again and again. Once this crime was established, another aristocratic family would fall. The 10 great aristocratic families were not innocent. The accounts that should be settled would be settled. However, there were priorities for everything. If the enemy was in front of them, the aristocratic families must preserve their strength first. Shangguan Yen and Xiao Hang had no objection to this point. A person couldn't be swayed by the hatred in his heart. It was never too late to take revenge, but it couldn't be late to protect. Shangguan Yen, Xiao Hang, and Gu Jiao got on the carriage to Duke Dinggua's mansion. Yen Shanjun had his own carriage and followed behind them unhurriedly. Thinking of Yen Shanjun's appearance, Gu Jiao expressed the doubts in her heart. "His eyes are different from ours. People from the Central Plains rarely had that kind of eye color." Shangguan Yen paused and said, "Yen Shanjun is not the flesh and blood of the late emperor. His biological father is a Turkic." In order to save the face of the imperial family and to prevent the Empress Dowager from being criticized and punished, the monarch lied to the public that he was the posthumous son of the late emperor. Such a shocking secret was said by her lightly. Even Xiao Heng didn't know what to say. Gu Jiao said, "No wonder the monarch of Great Yen trusts Yen Shanjun so unreservedly. It turns out that Yen Shanjun can't threaten his throne at all." Shangguan Yen said, "You can say that. Her imperial father was suspicious by nature. He only loved Yen Shanjun and Shangguan Qing unreservedly. It was just that one of them was a fake imperial family, and the other one would not live past 20 years. They would not pose the slightest threat to the imperial power." Gu Jiao asked, "Does Yen Shanjun know?" Shangguan Yen said, "He knows, but he doesn't care. The Empress Dowager had a son in her old age. Not long after giving birth to him, she passed away. He was brought up by the monarch. His elder brother is like a father. The monarch really loves him, and he also really respects the monarch. This is rare in the imperial family." Gu Jiao was deeply proud. After all, there is no interest involved. Shangguan Yen sighed. Yen Shanjun is a bit playful. He has been unwilling to get married. Little Junju is his daughter from a one-night stand outside. He was not mature enough to be a responsible father. As a result, after the monarch raised him, he also had to raise his daughter for him. It was really hard on him. "What are you saying about me?" Yen Shanjuan's carriage suddenly drove to their carriage. Yen Shanjun used his fan to open their curtains. "Little niece, are you itching for a beating?" Shangguan Yen chuckled and said, "I fought with seventh uncle so many times, but seventh uncle seems to have never won against me. In the end, whose skin is itching?" Although Yen Shanjun's seniority was high, he and Shangguan Yen were similar in age and grew up together. When they were young, they often fought with each other. Shangguan Yen relied on the excellent bloodline and teachings of the Shenyuan family to crush Uncle Little Qi. The corner of Yen Shanjuan's mouth twitched. The fear of being dominated by Shangguan Yen welled up in his heart. He clenched his teeth. This face can't be recovered in this lifetime. His eyes fell on Xiao Heng's face. He smiled and said, "Your son doesn't seem to know martial arts. Was he bullied when he was young?" "This son of yours," there was a lot of information in this sentence. Shangguan Yen and the other two's expression didn't change in the slightest, as if they didn't hear this sentence. Xiao Heng said, "No, I have Long Yi." Whoever dared to bully him was beaten into a sandbag by Long Yi. Yen Shanjun, who was trying to regain his confidence from Xiao Heng, was speechless. "Stop the car," Yen Shanjun said. He got out of his carriage and sat in Duke Mansion's carriage. Shangguan Yen looked at this seventh uncle who she had beaten since childhood and asked in an incomparably cold voice, "Why do you want to squeeze into our carriage?" Yen Shanjun opened his folding fan and said with a smile, "Little Qi, uncle is afraid that you will feel awkward. They are a loving couple, but you are standing here. Don't you think that you are redundant?" Gu Jiao opened her eyes wide and seriously nodded her head. Shangguan Yen was dumbfounded. How did you know?" Yen Shanjun pointed his folding fan at Gu Jiao's throat and said with a smile like a spring breeze. When she spoke, her Adam's apple didn't move. In the imperial study, not only Gu Jiao observed Yen Shanjun also always paid attention to Gu Jiao. From a certain point of view, he and Gu Jiao were bold and careful people. Ordinary people would be embarrassed to always stare at others, but these two were magnanimous. "Hey, are you my grandnephew's wife?" This sentence was also a trap. Once Shangguan Yen said yes, it would be tantamount to admitting that Xiao Heng was his nephew. If Shangguan Yen said no, it would only be denying that Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng were husband and wife, not denying that Xiao Heng and Shangguan Yen were mother and son. Shangguan Yen glared at him. "Why do you always like to dig a hole for people?" Yen Shanjun laughed and fanned himself with his folding fan, saying, "Then, seventh uncle will use a secret to exchange with you." Shangguan Yen disdainfully snorted, "What valuable secret can you have?" Yen Shanjun mysteriously smiled. "For example, the truth of the Shenyuan family's destruction?" The three people pricked up their ears at the same time. "Although I shouldn't laugh when talking about such a serious matter, can the three of you not be so synchronized?" Yen Shanjun said with a smile, "Since you are so curious, I suddenly changed my mind. It's not worthwhile to tell you, but who asked you to take care of Light Shui for so long? For this, I should tell you everything I know. N. Shangguan Yen and Gu Jiao put down the stick in their hands with satisfaction. The two looked at him seriously, as if they would beat him down if he didn't say anything. Yen Shanjuan's face was full of black lines. Shangguan Yen, it's fine if you are fierce, but how can you find such a fierce daughter-in-law? Yen Shanjun finally sighed and told the truth. You should have heard of the state preceptor's prophecy. Purple star appears, emperor comes out of Shen. But do you know that there are 2 sentences before it? Gu Jiao and Shangguan Yen said in unison, what 2 sentences? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1059799728. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. M. zhbqg.com. Chapter 821. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Yen Shanjun was silent for a long time, and then said with a dignified expression, the fate of the great Yen is coming to an end. At this moment, the 3 people seemed to understand something. If it was just, the emperor will come out of Shenyuan, then half of Xuanyuan's blood flowed in Shangguan Yan's body. She could completely fulfill this prophecy. But if it was added, the fate of the great Yen is coming to an end, as the crown princess of the great Yen, Shangguan Yen could not be the emperor in the prophecy. The Shenyuan family will replace the Shangguan royal family and become the new imperial family. This was the real reason why the emperor wanted to kill the Shenyuan family. Shangguan Yen turned her head and looked at Yen Shanjun sitting on the stool beside her. You knew it long ago? Yen Shanjun waved his fan. Not long ago, I accidentally heard it outside His Majesty's imperial study a few years ago. Shangguan Yen asked, then what else did you hear? Yen Shanjun sighed. I heard that this prophecy was not told to His Majesty by the imperial preceptor. It was leaked by someone. Do you think that His Majesty destroyed the Shenyuan family because of this prophecy? In fact, the prophecy is only one of the factors. In fact, there are many inside stories. Hearing this, the first doubt in the hearts of the 3 people was solved. Although the 3 people didn't say it, because of the particularity of the matter, the 3 people once doubted whether this prophecy was fabricated out of thin air. Now it seems that the imperial preceptor indeed divined this prophecy and may have paid a great price for it. The imperial preceptor understood what this prophecy would bring to the Shenyuan family. He didn't intend to tell the Shenyuan family, so as to avoid the Shenyuan family rebelling. He also didn't intend to tell the emperor, so as to prevent the emperor from killing the Shenyuan family. But he never expected that there was a spy from the Jin state in the imperial preceptor hall. The spy was selected to enter the imperial preceptor hall at the age of 8. He lurked there for 10 years. During these 10 years, he didn't show the slightest flaw. Finally, he gained the trust of the imperial preceptor and became the imperial preceptor's first disciple. He was also present when the imperial preceptor divined. When the news spread, the state preceptor realized that he had been betrayed. The imperial advisor punished him, but unfortunately, it was too late. The monarch and the Shenyuan family had already heard the prophecy. The Shenyuan family originally had no mortal intentions, but the Shenyuan family also knew that with the king's suspicious personality, it was hard for him not to be wary of them. The Shenyuan family was already prepared to hand over their military power and return to their fields. However, at this moment, the Jin and Liang kingdoms made their move. The Jin state was the first of the 6 states, and it was the Jin state that divided the status of the 6 states. During the heyday of the Jin state, none of the other states could compete with it, and it had the absolute hegemony. Later on, the Liang nation rose and was recognized by the Jin nation. The Liang nation became the second upper nation. And, if Great Yen wanted to be ranked as one of the great kingdoms, it would have to be recognized by both the Great Jin and the Great Liang. These 2 countries were naturally unhappy. In those years, in order to stop the rise of the Great Yen kingdom, the Jin and Liang kingdoms started many wars at the border. Not only that, they also secretly supported the civil forces of the Great Yen kingdom to rebel. However, they did not expect that the Great Yen kingdom, which was in such a precarious state, would be held back by the Shenyuan family. Shenyuan Li's red tasseled spear caused everyone to tremble in fear. Countless brave generals of the Jin and Liang kingdoms fell under Shenyuan Li's red tasseled spear. The Jin and Liang kingdoms were defeated and did not dare to invade for many years. However, the good times did not last long. The Jin and Liang kingdoms had always refused to accept the Great Yen kingdom as an upper nation, because they knew that the Great Yen kingdom with the Shenyuan family was too powerful. Once it was allowed to develop, one day, the Shenyuan army would trample the mountains and rivers of the Jin and Liang kingdoms. Everything was so coincidental. When they were racking their brains to think of a way to deal with the Great Yen kingdom and the Shenyuan family, the prophecy of the state preceptor appeared. Their envoys took the initiative to come to the Great Yen kingdom and proposed a very tempting condition to the Great Yen kingdom's monarch: destroy the Shenyuan family, and they would accept the Great Yen kingdom as one of the 3 upper nations. Not only would they share the right to use the sea and many islands with the Great Yen kingdom, they would also allow the Great Yen kingdom to seize the remaining 3 lower nations with them. Becoming an upper nation was not only an honor, but also a lot of practical benefits. It would be a lie to say that the Great Yen kingdom was not tempted. At that time, the monarch had 2 choices. 1. Let Shenyuan Li lead the army to attack the Jin and Liang kingdoms until they were convinced. 2. Accept the conditions proposed by the Jin and Liang kingdoms. The monarch chose the second option. Gu Jiao said, "That's right." Yen Shanjun sighed regretfully. At that time, the Shenyuan family had the strength to fight against the armies of the 2 upper nations. However, if they really won, it would increase the Shenyuan family's reputation among the people. They already had enough merit to overshadow the monarch. Did they still have to give the merit of becoming an upper nation to the Shenyuan family? Thinking about the prophecy, how could the monarch dare to let the Shenyuan family become stronger? Yen Shanjun continued, "There is also a small reason. The Great Yen kingdom has been in chaos for many years, and the treasury is in deficit. It is true that we can't afford to fight anymore." Gu Jiao glanced at him and said indifferently, "If we seize a few more mansions of corrupt officials, won't we be able to fill up the treasury?" Yen Shanjun coughed lightly and said, "That's why I said it was a small reason, not the main reason." Gu Jiao thought of what Nan Gongli said to her before he died. Therefore, he did not say Jing Yang, but Jin and Liang. He knew that it was the Jin spies who spread the prophecy. He also knew that the Jin and Liang kingdoms had tempted the monarch of the Great Yen kingdom. Gu Jiao touched her chin and murmured thoughtfully, "Indeed, how could a subject directly call the monarch by his name?" However, although she felt that it was strange for Nan Gongli to call the monarch by his name, no one thought of this at that time. If it was really the Jin and Liang kingdoms who had stabbed the Yen kingdom in the back so many times, no wonder she saw in her dream that the Jin and Liang kingdoms would attack the Great Yen kingdom during the civil war. From the beginning, the Jin and Liang kingdoms did not sincerely accept the Great Yen kingdom as a superior kingdom. All of this was just a delaying tactic. When the Shenyuan family was destroyed, the Shenyuan army would be torn apart, and all the aristocratic families would replace the Shenyuan army. Then, the Great Yen kingdom would lose its sturdiest shield and sharpest sword. The Great Yen kingdom would no longer have the strength to fight against the Jin and Liang kingdoms. At that time, the Jin and Liang kingdoms would be able to swallow the Great Yen kingdom. Over the years, the Jin and Liang kingdoms had allowed the Great Yen kingdom to develop. On one hand, they were waiting for the Shenyuan family's military power to fall. On the other hand, they were feeding the Great Yen kingdom, a little fat rabbit. It was fat and strong, and had no attack power. It was the best prey. How could the monarch of the Great Yen Kingdom not know the intentions of the Jin and Liang kingdoms? He was crazy, but he was not stupid. There were two reasons why he still decided to destroy the Shenyuan family. First, he wanted to prevent the prophecy of the Shenyuan family becoming the emperor from coming true. Second, the monarch had enough confidence in himself. He believed that even without Shenyuan clan and Shenyuan Li, he would still be able to cultivate a mighty army of great Yen that would be more invincible and invincible in the coming years. Gu Jiao felt that he was overconfident. The Jin and Liang kingdoms were ambitious, and they had been waiting for the right time to annex the Great Yen. Originally, they would take action after the Great Yen Kingdom's 3 years of internal strife. But now, the internal strife had been stopped in advance. They had waited patiently for 3 years during the internal strife, waiting until the Great Yen Kingdom's military power was reduced to a thin layer. But now, the Great Yen Kingdom had a strong and powerful army. So, the Jin and Liang kingdoms would not be so stupid to send their troops now. While they were talking, the carriage arrived at Duke An's mansion. Gu Jiao and Xiao Hang brought Shangguan Yen and Yen Shanjun straight to Feng's courtyard. Today's weather was hot again. All the adults were staying indoors to enjoy the cool air and avoid the heat. Only the 2 little kids were shoveling sand in the courtyard while staring at the scorching sun. It was the sand pile that Gu Xiaoshun went to get. The 2 squatted next to the sand pile, using the mini shovels that Gu Xiaoshun made for them to dig the sand. After they finished digging, they put the sand into a mini wooden bucket nearby. The 2 were sweating profusely and enjoying themselves. From time to time, they would exchange a few words in childish language. The 2 of them looked so innocent that it made people happy to see them. Except for the old father, Yen Shanjun. "You little brat, don't get so close to my daughter. Both of your heads have bumped together. And don't hold her hand casually. I'll help you," little Jing Kong said to the young princess. "Okay." The young princess happily handed over her small spatula to him. The 2 grabbed the small shovel and shoveled the sand together. "Forget it. One more person to take care of my daughter." No. From today onwards, he would raise his daughter by himself. Yen Shanjun strode over and squeezed himself between the 2 little kids with his huge body. Little Jing Kong looked at the strange uncle who suddenly broke in with a confused look. The young princess was still in a daze as she exclaimed, "Daddy, you're back." Yen Shanjun smiled. "Yes." "Huh? Teacher, you're back too." The young princess decisively put down the small shovel and rushed to Gu Jiao like a little chick. Yen Shanjun stretched out his arms and hugged her. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428826/1059782887. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 822. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Little Jing Kong was a polite child, especially to his classmate's father. He felt his old father's embarrassment and thought, should I give him a hug? Hello, Light Shue's father. In the end, he chose to shake his little hand very seriously. He could only give Jiao Jiao a hug. Yen Shanjun, who was not comforted. The little princess introduced her father to Gu Jiao, and then introduced her friends and teacher to her father. Yen Shanjun then knew that this little girl was his daughter's teacher. What does she teach you? Killing people? In the palace, he saw this little girl like a killing god, shooting down the Han family's henchmen with 1 arrow, 2 arrows and 2 arrows. This little girl was simply a born archer. Riding. The little princess said in a cute voice, "Young Master Xiao is my equestrian teacher." Yen Shanjun secretly sighed in relief. Equestrian skills, fortunately. Gu Jiao touched her little head. "Next time, I'll teach you archery." Yen Shanjuan's body shook. His mind inexplicably flashed with the bloody scene of his dear daughter drawing her bow and shooting an arrow through the enemy's head. His little lady, don't become like that. The two little people went to play happily again. A certain little lady had no intention of sticking to her father. Yen Shanjun felt a deep sense of helplessness. He just went out for a trip. How come his daughter is not his anymore? Gu Jiao glanced at Yen Shanjun and stepped back to her room. When she walked past Yen Shanjun, she stuck out her little chest. She signaled with her eyes that the seniority was equal. Shangguan Yen also straightened her back and walked in front of him. Humph, the seniority is higher. This is what it means to raise the seniority of the whole family by one's own strength. The speechless Yen Shanjun. Gu Jiao first went to the side of Long Yi, wanting to see the injury of Long Yi. She remembered that before leaving, she had repeatedly warned Long Yi not to move randomly. She also didn't know whether he was obedient or not. If by any chance he moved the bandage and gauze, then the wound would easily get infected. But the moment she stepped into the room, the corner of her mouth fiercely twitched. She saw that Long Yi was still maintaining the posture she had seen before she had left, half-twisted his body, one hand in front of his body, and the other hand was raised high above his head. He was motionless as if he wanted to spike the ball. "Long Yi, what are you doing?" She walked over and asked. Long Yi still didn't move, but his eyeballs moved a bit. As if to say, "Hey, I didn't move." Gu Jiao covered her eyes. Was that what she meant? "You were so disobedient in the past, why did you only listen to this sentence?" Gu Jiao faintly felt that Long Yi was waiting for her to praise him. So strange, why did I read this feeling from his eyes? Gu Jiao looked at the gauze wrapped around his arm and waist, and decided to praise him. Long Yi is really great. Really obedient. Okay, you can move now. Always standing like this, isn't he afraid of muscle stiffness and cramping? Before she finished sighing, Long Yi stopped his posture and took out a box of charcoal. Obedient Long Yi should be rewarded, and now, it was time for Long Yi to use the charcoal. Gu Jiao, falling into a pit is still okay? The Crown Prince and Madame Han were handed over to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's Chancellor personally tried the case of the fake monarch. Mother and son were imprisoned in different torture rooms. At first, both of them were very stubborn, but if the Supreme Court's Chancellor didn't even have this little bit of means, then he would have sat on the throne in vain. The Crown Prince was a tough nut to crack, but he also had a weak spot, and his weak spot was his mansion's little daughter who was only 2 years old. In order to extort a confession, the Supreme Court's Chancellor didn't hesitate to bring his little daughter, and let him look at her through the door, then took her to the next room. Next door, his little daughter's frightened cry came, and the Crown Prince suddenly panicked. "Stop! Stop for this Emperor! She is the Princess of Great Yen. You can't treat her like this." The Supreme Court's Chancellor coldly said, "Committing such a monstrous crime, do you think you can still be a prince? Your crime is more serious than Shangguan Yan's that year. You are not as favored as her, and your whole family will be demoted to commoners." "Father, Wuwa, I'm scared. Father, I'm scared." Next door, his little daughter's cry was heart-wrenching, and the Crown Prince's willpower was completely defeated. His hands firmly pulled his sleeves, and with red eyes, he gritted his teeth and said, "Don't hurt her. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything." Next door, Gu Chengfeng rubbed his throat that was almost smoking. Imitating a child's voice was really too difficult. In fact, it was not that similar. But separated by a wall, the Crown Prince's mind was in a mess, and his head was hot, so the Crown Prince didn't quite hear it. The Crown Prince confessed his crime. This time, the palace coup had little to do with him. He didn't know the Han family's plan in advance. His biggest mistake was refusing to believe that the emperor in the palace was fake, but he didn't have time to cause substantial harm. He also didn't know that the Han family led troops to encircle and suppress the emperor. His main crime was to frame the real imperial grandson, Xiao Hang. The Supreme Court's chancellor recorded while setting off stormy waves in his heart. Who would have thought that the imperial grandson would have such an inside story? Where is the real imperial grandson? Who is Shangguan Qing's real identity? The Supreme Court's chancellor asked. The crown prince lightly said, "You have to ask Shangguan Yen about this emperor doesn't know. How could he waste his energy on a fake imperial grandson? As for Xiao Hang, that kid suddenly disappeared from Chengdu, and he couldn't be found even with a lantern." The Supreme Court's chancellor continued to interrogate, "Who did you instruct? The Han family?" The crown prince clenched his fist. "Nangong family. Duke Ongwa's mansion." Gu Jiao, who was holding the brush until her hands were soft, leaned on the table and breathed heavily. Long Yi was resting. He went to look for a new charcoal pencil. Xiao Hang walked into the room with a plate of freshly cut melons and fruits. Seeing Gu Jiao leaning on the table, he walked over and pinched her face. "Tired?" Gu Jiao. "Oh no." Her hands were sore. "Eat something." Xiao Hang said, "It's not too cold, the sweetness is just right." Gu Jiao sat up straight and used a skewer to pick up a small piece of honeydew melon, but she didn't hurry to eat, rather paused. Xiao Hang asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Jiao said, "I was thinking about a dream I had a few days ago." Xiao Heng curiously asked, "Oh? What did you dream about?" Gu Jiao thought for a bit, and decided not to hide it from him. "I dreamed that Han family used the fake emperor's hand to start civil strife. The 10 great clans killed each other, and Han family and Nangong family, who originally belonged to the crown prince's camp, also fought each other." Xiao Heng deeply looked at her, and understood that she saw the future in her dream again. No wonder she knew that the emperor was replaced. Xiao Hang muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "The crown prince needs Han family and Nangong family. He wants to balance the relationship between the two clans, but Han family and Han family desire to be the strongest. From this point of view, Han family and Nangong family are on opposite sides." Gu Jiao nodded her head, "So it's not strange for them to fight." "Then who won in the end?" Xiao Heng asked. Gu Jiao shook her head, "No one won. In that civil war, there was no true winner. Han family thought that they could control the situation, but they did not know that the counterattack of the great clans was much more unreasonable than she had imagined. All of the clans suffered heavy losses, and the Han family and Nangong family, the two most powerful military clans, fought fiercely. Jin and Liang took advantage of the situation. Gu Jiao looked at the 2 largest pieces of honeydew on the plate, but now, the situation may change. Han family and Nangong family were both going to be punished. They had a common enemy and did not have the energy to fight among themselves, so it was very likely that they would temporarily work together to fight against the outside world. Gu Jiao's guess was confirmed in the middle of the night. Steward Zhang heard the news that night from outside. The Han family refused to hand over the commander's seal, and took a group of elite soldiers to kill their way out of the west gate. An hour later, the people of Nangong family also led their soldiers out of Chengdu. Over the years, the great clans had infiltrated many of their trusted subordinates into the military camp. Thus, a considerable portion of the soldiers listened to the orders of the clans themselves. After the 2 great clans killed their way out of Chengdu, they gathered the soldiers of the various military camps outside Chengdu and advanced through the night to the border. They also stationed a lot of soldiers at the border. It was no longer important whether the crown prince and the Han family fell into the hands of the monarch. If the Han family wanted to survive, they could just rebel. What the Shenyuan family did not accomplish in the past, the Han family would complete it now. Coincidentally, the Nangong family also thought the same. Gu Jiao looked at the twinkling stars in the sky. Is civil war still inevitable? The invasion of Jin and Liang. In the dream, it was the 11 great clans that were fighting each other. But now, it was the 9 great clans that were ordered to suppress the Han and Nangong families. Gu Jiao muttered to herself, "What will the Nangong and Han families do when they have nowhere to go?" Xiao Hang looked up at the endless night sky. They will open the gate to the border and drive the tiger to swallow the wolf. Digression. The third night watch is here. Is there a monthly ticket for me to sneak in? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1059729556. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 823. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Heng's guess was confirmed in the following days. In the middle of August, news came from Tian Shan Pass that the Jin army was heading east. 2 days later, news came from Yanmen Pass that the Liang army was heading east. The Han family and the Nangong family were still on the way and wouldn't reach the border so soon. They should have contacted the border guards through their trusted subordinates. Tian Shan Pass was defended by the Han clan's forces, while Yanmen Pass was defended by the Nangong clan's forces. Although there were other generals, the main generals were the trusted aides of these two clans. As soon as the secret report arrived, the two clans' forces quickly swept away the obstacles and took control of the situation at the border. When the news reached Chengdu, the monarch was so angry that he smashed the inkstone in the imperial study. The eunuchs and maids in the room were so scared that they knelt on the ground. Zhang Dequan didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Who would have thought that after capturing Madame Han and imprisoning the crown prince, the two families would join hands to rebel? They were much more arrogant than the Shenyuan family in the past. The Shenyuan family didn't rebel because they were afraid of being arrested. They knew about the secret agreement between the monarch and the Jin and Liang countries, so they decided to rebel. At that time, only the monarch, Shenyuan Li, and Zhang Dequan were in the imperial study. Zhang Dequan still felt enlightened when he recalled Shenyuan Li's words of righteous indignation. Shenyuan Li said, "Shangguan Jingyang, do you really think that the Shenyuan family is your biggest threat? In order to get rid of the Shenyuan family, you don't hesitate to ask a tiger for its skin. One day, you will regret it." After 16 years, Shenyuan Li's words finally came true. The ambitions of the Jin and Liang countries could no longer be hidden. However, the Yan kingdom didn't have the million soldiers of the Shenyuan family. What could they use to fight against the two great countries? Not to mention that the Han family and the Nangong family had taken away almost half of their troops. How could they fight this war? What chance did they have of winning? If Shenyuan Li was still alive, and all the men of the Shenyuan family were still alive, they might have been able to win the war with fewer troops. However, they had all died in battle. Ever since Han Shi revealed her true face, the monarch had not spent a single day without regret. Regardless of whether it was internal or external troubles, as long as the Shenyuan family was present, there would not be so many demons and monsters. He was afraid that the Shenyuan family was so powerful that he wanted to exterminate the entire Shenyuan family for a prophecy. But in the end, Great Yan's empire still fell into a precarious situation. The king took a deep breath and calmed himself down. "I still have the army, the Wang clan and the Mu clan, and the Black Wind cavalry. I might not lose." Report. Outside the imperial study, the anxious voice of a spy suddenly came in with a report. "Announce it," the monarch said seriously. Zhang Dequan summoned the spy into the imperial study. However, there was more than one spy. "Reporting to your majesty, there's an urgent report from Blue Snow Pass. The Chen nation's army is advancing toward the east. Your majesty, the spies have discovered the Zhao army. Reporting to your majesty, the Qishui Pass has discovered the Zhao country's army. Out of the 6 countries in the world, 5 of them were marching towards the Yan kingdom. This was no longer just the invasion of Jin and Liang. Even the other 3 countries were taking advantage of the situation to take a bite of the Yan kingdom's fat meat. If it was in the past, Zhao, Chen, and Zhao naturally would not have the courage. But now, the news of Jin and Liang sending troops to the Yan kingdom had already shaken the world. The good news of the Han clan and Nangong clan's defection did not escape the eyes of the spies of the other countries. If they did not take a share of the soup now, when would they? The monarch's blood and qi surged. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and fainted on the ground. Zhang Dequan hurriedly invited the imperial physician and asked someone to invite Gu Jiao, Shangguan Yan, and Xiao Hang into the imperial palace. To be honest, the development of the matter was indeed somewhat unexpected. Originally, they thought that by stopping the Han clan, they could stop a civil war. Without the consumption of the civil war, Jin and Liang would not easily confront the Yan kingdom head-on. Who would have thought that the Han clan and Nangong clan would join hands to rebel? Not only did they bring about civil strife, but they also directly knocked open all the border checkpoints of the Yan kingdom, turning the invasion of the 2 countries into a plundering of the 5 countries. In the dream, Zhao, Chen, and Zhao did not participate in the carving up of the Yan kingdom. Because at that time, the Yan kingdom was only a shell, and Jin and Liang could easily take it. Now, the Yan kingdom had strong soldiers and strong horses. Losing was inevitable, but it was bound to be a fierce battle. They had no time to care about the Yan kingdom's eastern region. The situation is even more serious than in the dream. Gu Jiao had so many prophetic dreams, but this was the one that was the most out of her control. Would everyone still go to the ending in the dream? The carriage arrived at the imperial palace. The monarch had just experienced a small stroke and was rescued by the imperial physician in time. He looked very haggard, as if he had aged more than 10 years in a day. He was lying on the bright yellow dragon bed, and his breath was drifting. He tasted the taste of regret and also the bitter fruit of retribution. Gu Jiao checked his body. There was no danger to his life, but his body could not be as agile as before in a short period of time. Gu Jiao and Xiao Hang could see that he had something to say to Shangguan Yan. The 2 turned and walked out. Zhang Dequan also left with the palace people. Only the father and daughter were left in the huge bedchamber. Shangguan Yan stood in front of the dragon bed, looked at the old and weak monarch lightly, and asked, "Do you regret it?" The monarch's lips twitched twice, and a trace of regret flashed in his turbid eyes. But he was stubborn on the surface, unwilling to admit that he was frivolous. But in fact, he had long regretted it. It was just that he did not expect that he would regret it so thoroughly. It was not the Shenyuan clan who took away the destiny of the Yan kingdom, but himself. He destroyed the Shenyuan clan and destroyed the strongest barrier of the Yan kingdom. The Yan kingdom became a fish on the chopping board, and even the Xia kingdom raised the butcher knife in their hand. He recalled countless times in his heart, if the Shenyuan clan was still there, who would dare to invade? Save, save. He opened his mouth, trying to say something. He just had a stroke, so his voice was small and unclear. "Do you want me to save the Yan kingdom?" Shangguan Yan said lightly, "I won't promise you." Sex, life. What he said was to save his life and quickly escape. The Yan kingdom was going to die. The Yan kingdom's princess would not end up like this. Leave with the 2 children and never come back. The Yan kingdom's monarch looked at the direction of the door, which was half open. From his angle, he could not see Xiao Hang, only Xiao Hang's shadow on the ground. He opened his mouth with difficulty, but in the end, he did not call out that name. Gu Jiao and Xiao Hang squatted on the ground. Xiao Hang broke a branch and drew a map of the 6 countries. Xiao Hang pointed at the map with the branch and said, "The Yan kingdom is in the middle. To the north is the ice field, and to the south is the Red River. The west borders the Jin kingdom and the Liang kingdom, and these 3 countries form a triangle." Gu Jiao understood. That's why the Jin kingdom tried to rope in the Liang kingdom to prevent the Liang kingdom and the Yan kingdom from becoming allies. Xiao Heng nodded. That's right. What about the east? Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Heng pointed at two small circles on the map with the branch and said, to the east are the Chen Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom. The Chen Kingdom is in the northeast, the Zhao Kingdom is in the southeast, and the Zhao Kingdom is the furthest. We have to go around the Chen Kingdom to reach it. Gu Jiao asked. The Tian Shan Pass blocking the Jin Kingdom is guarded by the Han family, and the Yen Gate Pass blocking the Liang Kingdom is guarded by the Nangong family. What about the Chen Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom? Xiao Heng said, the Tsangxue Pass is guarded by the Mu family to prevent the Chen Kingdom's cavalry from invading. The Red River Pass is guarded by the Wang family to prevent the Zhao Kingdom's navy from invading. If the Zhao Kingdom wants to attack the Yen Kingdom, the best way is to go around the Chen Kingdom and go through the Chongping Pass in the ice field. The pass is guarded by the local army. Gu Jiao paused. The Zhao Kingdom is the furthest. They can't get here so quickly. Xiao Heng looked at the map and said, judging from the distance and marching speed, the fastest is the Jin Kingdom and the Liang Kingdom's army, followed by the Zhao Kingdom's navy, and then the Chen Kingdom's cavalry. Gu Jiao asked again, who is leading the army in the Zhao Kingdom? Xiao Heng pondered and said, to cross the Red River, they need the protection of the navy. If there are no accidents, it will be my father, Marquis Xianping. Gu Jiao was speechless. Should they fight or not? What about the Chen Kingdom? Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Heng thought for a while and said, although there is no definite news from the Chen Kingdom suffered a defeat last year. In order to boost the morale of the army, the Yuan Tang will lead the army. As for who would lead the army in the Zhao Kingdom, Xiao Heng wasn't sure. He didn't know much about the Zhao Kingdom, but he was sure that the Yen Kingdom couldn't fight against 5 countries at the same time. Gu Jiao asked curiously, the Yuan Tang and the Emperor of the Zhao Kingdom don't know that we are in the Yen Kingdom. If they know that we are going to fight, will they still fight? Xiao Heng looked at her and asked, you will fight? Gu Jiao squatted and drew circles on the ground. She said casually, I am the commander of the Black Wind Battalion. I will fight, right? The commander of the Black Wind Battalion could quit at any time if she wanted to. Xiao Heng opened his mouth and said, you. It's not all for you and the Jing Kong. Gu Jiao understood what he wanted to say. She looked up at the endless sky and said, I just feel that I should do this. Digression. I'm a bit stuck. Please read it in the afternoon. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/1059560888. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 824. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. While the two were talking, Shangguan Yen came out of the bedroom. Shangguan Yen frowned and pursed her thin lips. Xiao Heng threw away the branch in his hand, pulled Gu Jiao to stand up, and asked Shangguan Yen, what did the emperor say? Shangguan Yen frowned and said, he told us to run away quickly. If he didn't say that, she would have run away with the children. But if he really told her to run away, she didn't want to run away. Sure enough, the human heart is the strangest thing in the world. We can't escape, Xiao Heng said. With the ambition of Jin and Liang, the great Yan royal family and the descendants of Shen Yuan can't escape. As long as the great Yan's mountains and rivers are trampled, there is only one ending waiting for them. Shangguan Yen nodded her head. You go back to the Duke's mansion first. I'll summon the ministers to discuss the affairs of the imperial court. The emperor had a stroke, and the border was in chaos. It's really a double whammy. But no matter what, they have no way out. Gu Jiao and Xiao Hang took the carriage back to the duke's mansion. The news from the imperial court had already spread throughout the entire residence. Steward Zhang scolded the Han clan and Nangong clan, and also ridiculed the various countries that harbored evil intentions. Of course, he didn't forget to greet the monarch who acted on his own accord. A room full of people gathered in the lobby. The old chancellor whispered beside Empress Dowager Zhuang, "Why did our emperor come to join in the fun? Isn't he a benevolent emperor? With my understanding of him, it's good if others don't attack him. He won't take the initiative to start a war. He's not that courageous. The country he's fighting is not a small country like the Chen country, but the most powerful Yen country among the three countries." Empress Dowager Zhuang coldly snorted. "At first glance, it's not his idea. It must be someone who urged him." The old chancellor thoughtfully said, "Who urged him?" Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, "If it's not Marquis Xianping, then it's Tang Yueshan." Tang Yueshan was more likely. The old chancellor was at his wit's end and said, "Aheng is the eldest grandson of the emperor of Dian, Zhao Jiao is the adopted son of the duke's manor. If they really fought, it would be very awkward." Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at him. Was this a question of whether it was awkward or not? The old chancellor coughed lightly. "Then, what do you plan to do?" What was she going to do? If it were up to her, she would have brought the children back to Zhao country immediately, far away from the Yen country. But that was impossible. From the moment the children stepped into the Yen kingdom, their fate was already tied to the Yen kingdom. She only hoped that Zhao Jiao would not go to war again. There were so many famous generals in the great Yen clan, so there was no need for a girl to go on an expedition, right? But when Gu Jiao went to find Black Wind King as soon as she entered the courtyard, Empress Dowager Zhuang understood that she was going to the battlefield again. Empress Dowager Zhuang silently returned to her room. "Ah, Zhuang." The old chancellor glanced at Duke An and Second Master Jing on the wheelchair across from him and smiled. "Excuse me for a moment." He chased over to Empress Dowager Zhuang's side. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat in front of the window, looking at the crabapple tree in the courtyard. The old chancellor asked, "What are you doing?" "You left without saying a word." Empress Dowager Zhuang did not speak. The old chancellor sighed. "Things have not reached that point yet, right? Don't first. She is only 16. Empress Dowager Zhuang spoke. The old chancellor was startled. Empress Dowager Zhuang lowered her eyes and took out a new pouch from her wide sleeve. There are still 2 months before she turns 17. Last year, she was at war for her birthday, and this year, she is at war again. 15 or 16 years old was the age of innocence. She should be in her boudoir and receive the protection of her parents, but she had already gone to war twice. Zhao Jiao had never had a good day's rest. She thought that she had been tired enough in this life, but seeing Zhao Jiao, she felt that she was not tired enough. If she was a bit more tired, would she be able to share a bit more of Zhao Jiao's burden? "Great aunt." Gu Jiao's voice came from the door. She knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" Empress Dowager Zhuang put away the pouch and said in a normal tone, "Come in." Gu Jiao pushed open the door and entered. Looking at the old chancellor, she said, "Oh, great uncle is also here." The old chancellor calmly glanced at Zhuang Jintz, who no longer had any trace of melancholy. Smiling, he asked Gu Jiao, "Is there something you need?" Gu Jiao said, "It's nothing much, it's just that. The situation in Yen is not too good. Aheng and I discussed it a bit and decided to find someone to escort you back to Zhao first." Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, "Even if you did not say it, we were planning to leave. After staying for so long, we are already tired of it." The Han family and the Nangong family's defection completely disrupted their original plans. The 10 great families and Yan's ruler were no longer the enemies in front of them. The armies of the 5 countries were. The old chancellor understood Zhuang Jintz. She definitely would not abandon Gu Jiao. The reason that she wanted to leave was because she had a reason that she had to leave. He very quickly thought through the crux of the matter and said to Gu Jiao, "Your great-aunt's meaning is that we should quickly set out and do our best to reach Qi Shui Pass before Zhao launches their attack. Don't let the two countries really start fighting." Jin and Liang countries had no way of stopping them, but Zhao, Chan and Zhao countries could still fight for them. Regardless of who the general of Zhao country was, he and Zhuang Jins could stop them. As for Chen country, Gu Jiao and Xiao Hang discussed it and decided that Xiao Hang would go and negotiate with Yuan Tang. Xiao Hang would bring Gu Jiao's handwritten letter and the golden seal of the Yan Emperor's grandson. In fact, it was most appropriate to let Gu Jiao handle this matter. After all, Yuan Tang had a relationship with Gu Jiao. Yuan Tang had told Gu Jiao more than once that the future crown prince of Chen country owed her a favor and would return it to her in the future. However, they might not necessarily meet Yuan Tang this time. Secondly, Gu Jiao had a more important task to do. Yuan Tang knew Xiao Hang and was let out of the capital by Xiao Hang. Therefore, Xiao Hang was the second best choice. Xiao Hang's purpose was not only to stop Chen country from going to war with Yan country, but also to use Chen country's forces to stop Zhao country, which was taking a detour. It was not an easy task, but if they could not stop the two countries, once the eastern border of the Yan kingdom was breached, the morale of the western border would plummet, and the war with the Jin state and the Liang state would be even more difficult. After confirming the plans of both sides, Xiao Hang went to the imperial palace and told Shangguan Yen the plan. Shangguan Yen had a fierce discussion with the military ministers of various aristocratic families for the whole night and finally finalized all the plans. Xiao Hang would go to Tsongshui Pass in the northeast as the Yan Emperor's grandson and negotiate with Chen country's army. Wang Su would lead an army to escort him. Dukan would go to Qi Shui Pass in the southeast as the Yan Emperor's envoy to negotiate with Zhao country's army. The Feng family's patriarch, Feng Wuxiu, would lead an army to escort him. The reason why the young Feng Wuxiu was chosen was because he had a powerful elder brother, Taoist priest Qing Feng. Grandaunt and son-in-law would be arranged in the accompanying team. Next was the choice of the western border. Tian Shan Pass and Yanmen Pass were both in the western border of Yan country. The Black Wind cavalry could reach there in 15 days, while the infantry and supplies needed 1 month. In other words, it was likely to be September when they arrived there. Outside the throne room, Shangguan Yen looked at the west in a daze. It's already very cold in Tian Shan Pass in September. Let the soldiers wear warm clothes. Xiao Heng looked at her deeply. What are you going to do? Shangguan Yen whispered, I'm going to ask for another imperial edict. The odds of winning this war were too small. The morale of the soldiers of Yan country was not high. If they wanted to win, they needed the emperor to go to war to boost their morale. However, the emperor was old and had just caught a cold. Obviously, it was not suitable for him to travel far. On the same day, the emperor issued an imperial edict, conferring the third Princess Shangguan Yen as the crown princess of Yan country. She would go to war on behalf of the emperor and take command of the western border. Accompanying her were 50,000 Black Wind cavalry and 120,000 imperial troops. This was all the troops that Shangdu could deploy at present. The rest of the troops were either taken away by the Han family and the Nangong family, or they were guarding the borders and different cities. They could not be easily mobilized. In the Guogong mansion, Gu Jiao was trying on the armor for the Black Wind King. He also had his own armor. The previous one was left in the Han family. This one was made by Guogong, and Gu Changfeng came over and curled his lips. Our military strength is not even half of theirs. How are we going to fight? He didn't realize that he used the word we. Gu Jiao adjusted the Black Wind King's armor and said, We'll fight as we should. Gu Changfeng was about to say something when he suddenly caught a glimpse of Gu Chongqing at the door. Big brother. Gu Chongqing's body had significantly improved. His spirit looked good. He had a long sword hanging on his waist and a bag on his back. It looked like he was going to go on a long journey. Gu Chongqing looked at his sister and said, Such a dangerous thing, do you plan to go alone? Gu Jiao glanced at him and said, You have a more important mission. The army in the west was set to leave on the 20th of August. On the night before departure, Gu Jiao decided to go to the Royal Advisor Hall. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Xiao Hang standing in front of her door. "What's the matter?" she asked in a daze. Xiao Hang opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he stopped. "If there's anything you want to say, just say it," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Hang lowered his eyes and handed over the 2 boxes in his hands. "What is it?" Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Hang was somewhat embarrassed. He took a deep breath and said, "The box on top is your birthday present from last year. It was prepared long ago. You went to the frontier in a hurry, so I didn't have time to give it to you. This time, I probably won't be able to celebrate your birthday with you, so I'll give you the present first." Gu Jiao opened the box. Last year's birthday present was a golden charcoal pencil. The outer shell was made of pure gold, and there was a rotating one inside that could change the charcoal core. Wow, it was the ancient version of an automatic pencil. This year's birthday present was a small booklet with gold foil and a pair of hairpins. Speaking of which, her booklet was indeed almost used up. It was not strange to give a pen and booklet, but it was rare to see a hairpin. Sure enough, she had grown up. Her gift-giving was not like stepping on a landmine like before. Gu Jiao's fingertips gently touched the white jade hairpin. "I like it very much." "Thank you." Xiao Hang saw that she cherished it very much, and he knew that he had finally given the right gift this time. He secretly sighed and said, "Were you going to go out just now? You go first." "Oh, okay." Gu Jiao turned around and put away the brocade box, then stepped out of the room. Looking at her departing figure, Xiao Hang calmed himself down. He suppressed the nervousness in his eyes and called out to her, "Gu Jiao Jiao, when you come back, let's get married." Gu Jiao turned around and looked at him with a confused expression. Didn't we already get married?" Xiao Hang smiled gently. "It's not Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao's mother, it's Xiao Hang and Gu Jiao. I want to marry you, in the name of Xiao Hang." Gu Jiao's lips curved slightly. "Okay. When I come back, I'll marry you." Digression. Oh, good morning. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964282/1059555022. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 825. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. The novel was updated more quickly. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that couldn't be found online. When Gu Jiao came out of Feng's courtyard, she caught a glimpse of a little figure peeking out from behind a big tree. Gu Jiao walked over. "Jing Kong." Little Jing Kong was stunned for a moment, then he scratched his head and walked out. "Ah, I was discovered." Gu Jiao touched his little head. "Were you waiting for me?" Yes. Little Jing Kong hesitated for a moment, then nodded seriously. He raised his tender little face and looked at Gu Jiao with his big blinking eyes. His thick and curly eyelashes made him look like a little eyelash fairy. "Jiao Jiao, are you going to war again?" he asked reluctantly. "Why do you always have to go to war?" Gu Jiao didn't know how to answer this question. She knelt down on one knee in front of him and suddenly realized that little Jing Kong had grown taller. In the past, she could easily see the top of his head from this position, but now they were really at eye level. "I can watch you grow up." "That's great." Gu Jiao picked up a leaf that had fallen on his shoulder and said softly, "Everyone has their own things to do. It's their duty to save the dying and heal the injured, to protect the country and the people. Little Jing Kong didn't quite understand. He thought for a moment, then clenched his little fists and said, "Then my responsibility must be to protect Jiao Jiao. I want to learn martial arts. I want to grow up. I'll go to war in the future. I don't need to go to Jiao Jiao." Gu Jiao touched his little head and said with a smile, "War is not fun." Little Jing Kong frowned and said, "But war is very tiring. I don't want Jiao Jiao to suffer." Gu Jiao said, "It's not tiring for me." Little Jing Kong couldn't bear to part with her, so he felt so wronged that he was about to cry. Gu Jiao hugged him for a long time before coaxing him back to his room to sleep. After the little fellow fell asleep, Gu Jiao took the carriage to the State Preceptor Hall. In the purple bamboo forest, the imperial tutor was sitting in the central room playing chess. The Crown Prince and the House of Han had fallen from power, and the matter of the fake monarch had come to light. Naturally, the Imperial Advisor Hall was cleared of any wrongdoing and the lockdown was lifted. Old Mr. Meng had already left. The Imperial Preceptor was playing chess with himself. The disciple who was originally on duty went to do something, and Yi Qing sat on the side, respectfully waiting for the master's orders. "I'm not playing anymore." The State Preceptor suddenly put the chess piece back into the box. Yi Qing hurriedly moved over and sorted the black and white chess pieces, and then packed the chessboard. At this moment, Yu He's voice came from outside the courtyard. "Master, Lord Shao is here. Let him in." The Imperial Tutor said. Gu Jiao entered the bamboo hut. It was already late at night. Feather fans and colored glass lamps were hung in the corridor. The transparency of this colored glass was almost the same as the glass in his previous life. At first glance, he could tell that it was far superior to the craftsmanship of the Liang Kingdom. "When did you put it up? It's so beautiful." Gu Jiao said. "I put it up for the Moon Festival." Yi Qing invited Gu Jiao into the hut. It's usually hung up until the end of the month. The Moon Festival, also known as the Mid-Autumn Festival, was a tradition of the Great Yen to admire the moon and hang up lanterns. Gu Jiao sat down across from the Imperial Tutor. "The State Preceptor must have gone through a lot to come down to the mortal world, yet you still celebrate this kind of folk festival." The State Preceptor speechlessly glanced at her. "Play a game of chess with me." He decided not to bicker with her. "Sure. Seeing that I've misunderstood you for so long, I'll play with you." Yi Qing took out the chessboard that was finally tidied up, rearranged it, and went to make a pot of fruit tea. The fruit tea had its own fruity fragrance, but it wasn't too sweet. It was very suitable for Gu Jiao's taste. "You play black," the State Preceptor said. "Okay." Gu Jiao didn't refuse. She played black first. She put a piece on the small eye in the upper right corner of the chessboard. The State Preceptor looked at this piece and was in a trance for a moment. "Why aren't you playing?" Gu Jiao blinked and asked. "Don't tell me you don't know how to play?" "Who said I don't know how to play?" The State Preceptor coldly picked up a white piece and put it on the chessboard. "I'm here to get the small medicine box," Gu Jiao said. "By the way, I want to say goodbye to you." During this time, Gu Chongqing had been hiding in the intensive care unit to secretly practice the pirated Death Warrior's secret manual. Gu Jiao turned a blind eye and kept the small medicine box in the secret room. Now that Gu Chongqing had left, she should also take the small medicine box to battle. The State Preceptor snorted. "You still came to say goodbye to me, how rare." Gu Jiao put down a black piece. "Why don't you clarify?" The State Preceptor's hand that was holding the piece paused. This question came out of nowhere, and Yi Qing was confused. However, the State Preceptor understood what Gu Jiao was referring to after a short moment of thought. "There's no need," he said. The tragedy of the Shenyuan family had already happened. It wasn't something that could be exchanged for the lives of so many members of the Shenyuan family just by saying that it wasn't him who leaked the news. Moreover, it was indeed his oversight that year. He actually allowed a spy from the Jin country to infiltrate the State Preceptor Hall and become his most trusted disciple. The State Preceptor didn't ask how she knew the truth. After putting down a piece, he calmly said, Tian Shan Pass and Yanmen Pass aren't far apart. The armies of the Jin and Liang countries might have the opportunity to meet each other. You should be careful of Jin country's Gong Sun Yu and Liang country's Chu Feipeng. Both of them are divine generals with illustrious military achievements. In the dream, the 7 sons of Shen Yuan, Taoist Qing Feng, and Mu Qingchen all fell at the hands of Gong Sun Yu. As for Chu Feipeng, he was also a tough nut to crack. He was the one who led the army to encircle the Black Wind cavalry that was trapped in Mount Liang. The Black Wind cavalry fought to the last man before finally dying under the rain of arrows from the Chu family army. Even if the state preceptor didn't say anything, she would still pay special attention to them. Since the state preceptor said it, it meant that he was sincerely thinking for her. I will pay attention, Gu Jiao said. The state preceptor was used to seeing her choking people half to death. Now that she was suddenly so obedient, he didn't know what to do. You lost. Gu Jiao looked at the chessboard and said. Yi Qing was slightly stunned, and stretched his neck to look at the chessboard. The state preceptor really did lose. Yi Qing was even more shocked. Master's chess skills were very exquisite. He was unrivaled under Elder Meng, yet he actually lost to Xiao Lulang. From the situation on the chessboard, there was no such thing as master giving way. Therefore, Xiao Liulong's chess skills were really exquisite. Yi Qing looked at his master again. Master's eyes didn't have the slightest bit of surprise, as if it was something expected. Master! Could it be that he played chess with Xiao Lulang? Or could it be that Master learned about Xiao Liulong's chess skills from Elder Meng? Yi Qing was more and more unable to understand the relationship between his master and Xiao Lulang. Sometimes, he would have the illusion that they had known each other for a long time. Gu Jiao stood up. Okay, the chess game is over. I should go. The safety of Chengdu. I'll have to trouble the state preceptor hall. The state preceptor calmly said, Okay. This was her third purpose for coming to the state preceptor hall. She wanted the state preceptor to promise to protect Chengdu. Everyone had left, and Chengdu had become an empty shell. The state preceptor and Shen Yuan Li were good friends, and the state preceptor hall was created by the Lord of Shadows of the Shen Yuan family. No one could tell how loyal the state preceptor was to the monarch. Therefore, Gu Jiao needed his personal guarantee. The state preceptor looked at Gu Jiao without blinking. I will guard Chengdu and wait for your return. Gu Jiao waved her finger coolly and stepped into the boundless night. The autumn wind blew into the purple bamboo forest, and the glazed lanterns under the corridor gently rotated and swayed. In the study, the portrait of the general wearing black armor and holding a red tasseled spear was blown open with a snap. But this time, the person in the portrait had a face. After coming out of the state preceptor hall, Gu Jiao went back to the duke's mansion. She had to go to the barracks after packing her things. She would set off with the army tomorrow morning. Dukan was waiting for her at the door of Feng's courtyard. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshan were also peeking at her in the room. Dukan came to say goodbye to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was going to the battlefield, so he had to leave. On the surface, he was going to negotiate, but in fact, he was going to cover for his great-aunt and son-in-law, and also meet Xiao Heng's biological father. He had to see what kind of person his future in-laws were. He had heard from Gu Changfeng that Xiao Heng married her under another person's identity, so strictly speaking, this marriage was not valid. As for their marriage, the two families had to carefully discuss it. The two did not say too many words of farewell. Gu Jiao told him some things to pay attention to during his rehabilitation, and he also told Gu Jiao to take care of herself. Gu Jiao said, I will. I'm still waiting to see you stand up. Dukan's eyes flashed with a smile. He wrote on the armrest, I will. I will definitely stand up and send you off in a glorious way. So, you must come back safely. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshan did not want to leave. The two little men said that they wanted to stay in Chengdu and return to Zhao country together after Gu Jiao won the war. Gu Jiao did not agree. If I leave, your brother-in-law will leave, and great-aunt and son-in-law will also leave. Who will take care of you? Not to mention Madame Nan and Master Lu, it's not easy for them to come. We can't trouble them any more. Gu Yen said, we can take care of ourselves. Gu Shaoshan did not listen to his sister for the first time. Yes. We are adults. Gu Jiao pinched their faces. Adults? You haven't even grown hair yet. Humph. Gu Yen said, I'm only half a day younger than you. Gu Jiao made up her mind. The three little men must go back to Zhao country with her great-aunt and son-in-law. Gu Yen said with a depressed face, it's okay if you don't let us stay, but at least take this. Then he took out a box and put it on the table. And mine. Gu Shaoshan also took out his own. These were the hidden weapons that Master Lu made for them. Last time, they secretly put them next to Gu Jiao's pillow, and Gu Jiao put them back. Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes and looked at the two. You two even learned how to negotiate. Who taught you the art of speech? If they had asked her to accept this at the beginning, she would not have agreed. But the two of them first made an even more outrageous request. In comparison, this small request was very insignificant. Gu Yen raised his eyebrows and snorted. No one taught them. They are self-taught. They are gifted. Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. It seemed that these days, the two of them eavesdropped on us doing bad things. They learned all these little tricks. In the end, Gu Jiao accepted it. Because this was the only way they could feel a little relieved. After tidying up, Gu Jiao went to her great-aunt's room one last time. Her great-aunt was asleep. Gu Jiao did not wake her up. She walked over and gently put a jar of pickled candied fruit on the table. Then she went to the bed and whispered in her great-aunt's ear, You can only eat 3 candied fruits a day. You can't eat more. When you finish eating all of them, I will come back. The night in August was a little cold. Gu Jiao pulled a quilt over her great-aunt and tiptoed out of the room. The armor made a sound of friction. She quickly pressed it down and looked back at her great-aunt. She sighed and closed the door. In the darkness, Empress Dowager Zhuang slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were red. She shed a tear and closed her eyes as if nothing had happened. At 3 a.m, the Black Wind camp began to break camp. 50,000 cavalrymen were about to embark on the journey to the west. The imperial edict to set out had only been issued 3 days ago, but Gu Jiao had given the order 10 days in advance to prepare to break camp. Thus, everything had already been prepared. Among all the troops, the Black Wind camp was the most unhurried and orderly. Gu Jiao came to her tent. Teacher Hu had been waiting for a long time. When he saw her, Teacher Hu walked over with small steps. The weather had turned cold, but he still did not throw away the cattail leaf fan in his hand. He bowed and said, Your Excellency, the 6 commanders have just come to report that the 3 main camps have been assembled and are waiting for your orders. Gu Jiao said, Take me to see them. Teacher Hu hurriedly said, Yes. All the training grounds were occupied by horses and cavalrymen. The vanguard camp had 10,000 soldiers, the assault camp had 25,000, and the reserve camp had 15,000. The reserve camp was mainly responsible for supplies, logistics, medical treatment, and backup Black Wind cavalrymen. Due to the disparity in military strength, even some Black Wind cavalrymen under 3 years old were brought along. The youngest one was only 2.5 years old. When the horse trainer saw Gu Jiao walk over, his face darkened. It was obvious that he disliked this arrangement. Teacher Hu coughed and explained, We have no choice. There are too many supplies. In order to ensure the combat strength of the adult horses, the provisions have to be pulled by these young horses. 2.5 years old horses were already able to work. However, this was not ordinary work. It was a journey of thousands of miles, full of unknown dangers. They might not be able to come back after going. The baby horses were very excited and jumped behind the horse king. They were young and did not know what was waiting for them. Gu Jiao took a deep look at the ponies jumping around and said, Leave the ponies under the age of 3. The horse king was speechless. The horse trainer looked at Gu Jiao in astonishment. Gu Jiao did not seem to notice his gaze. She patted the horse king's neck and turned to patrol the other camps. She could feel that everyone was looking at her with unfamiliar eyes. Even though she had taken the position of commander, she was still not truly accepted by them. They listened to her orders not because they respected her, but because it was their duty to follow orders. When Gu Jiao finished her patrol, it was already 5 in the morning. After entering autumn, the night was not so bad, but the sky was still dark. Gu Jiao and the Black Wind King stood in the wind. She patted the armor on the Black Wind King's horse and asked softly, "Are you ready, boss?" The 16-year-old Black Wind King's aura was fully unleashed. The war horses on the training ground felt the Black Wind King's fighting spirit. It was as if they were summoned with endless fighting spirit. Their eyes and breathing were different. The cavalrymen looked at their mounts in astonishment. Such a situation had never happened before. However, this was not the most shocking thing. They saw the newly appointed commander Xiao take something from the Black Wind King's saddle and reach out to Teacher Hu. "Give me the flagpole," Gu Jiao said. Hey. Yes." Teacher Hu hurriedly brought the empty flagpole over with both hands. "Madam, here. You mentioned it to me last time. I have already prepared it." He did not understand why Madam wanted the flagpole. Wasn't the Great Yen Kingdom's flag already carried by the vanguard camp? In the next second, Gu Jiao unfolded the cloth in her hand with a snap. No, that was not a cloth. It was a flag. It was white with black edges, and in the middle was an eagle soaring in the sky. Eagle. It's the eagle flag. Someone in the cavalry camp could not help but exclaim. The eagle flag was originally the insignia of the Black Wind camp. Later, it gradually became the insignia of the entire Shenyuan family. The eagle flag also became the commander's flag of the Shenyuan family. Ever since the Shenyuan family was destroyed, the eagle flag was also destroyed. Gu Jiao put the flag on the flagpole and held it with both hands. She nimbly mounted the horse. She did not say anything unnecessary. She only carried the Shenyuan family's commander's flag with a determined gaze. The old subordinates of the Shenyuan family all had tears in their eyes. A 60-year-old general sitting on the back of a horse suddenly burst into tears. "Wanren Chong, it's time to leave. What are you looking at?" Outside the reserve camp, a soldier reminded Wanren Chong, who was staring blankly. Wanren Chong did not reply. He stared blankly at the youth on the back of a horse. The youth's shoulders were still very young, but he was resolutely carrying the Shenyuan family's commander's flag. He was carrying a heavy burden that should not be carried at his age. He was going to protect the country that the Shenyuan family had protected with their blood. What was he doing? "Wanren Chong, what are you doing? Wanren Chong, stand up. Don't lose to me. I am only 16. If you lose to me, you will lose face. Wanren Chong, I, Shenyuan Cheng, do not like anyone. You better not fail to live up to my trust. Wanren Chong, do you have eyes or not? The arrow is already at your head. Don't you know how to dodge? Wanren Chong, kill your way out. Don't die here." Wanren Chong's memories swept through his mind. He could not differentiate between Shenyuan Cheng and the youth on the horse. The Shenyuan family's commander's flag fluttered in the wind under the sunlight. Gu Jiao sternly said, "All Black Wind cavalry, listen to my orders. We will follow the crown princess to attack the enemy. We do not know the dangers of this trip. We do not know if you will live or die. If you do not want to go, you can stay. I will not punish you." No one would stay. Gu Jiao retracted her gaze and raised the commander's flag. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. "Let's go." Digression. This part was a bit difficult to write. Kon Ka was bald from head to toe. He could not sleep to the point of doubting his life. 2 monthly tickets to cheer me on. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642-826/1059340993. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 826. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The sky was still dark and the east was gray. It seemed that today was going to be a cloudy day. Chengdu had suddenly cooled down after entering autumn. Although it wasn't a bad thing, for the people of Chengdu who were used to the hot summer, there was an indescribable strangeness. The army was setting out today, and the weather was like this. It didn't seem like a good sign. Many people thought pessimistically. In a shabby alley outside Chengdu, Li Shen didn't sleep for the entire night. He sat in a daze for an entire night, holding an iron plate that was almost worn flat in his hand. It was not until he heard the sound of someone turning over in the next room that he put away the iron plate, lifted the curtain, and went to the kitchen. He cooked a pot of millet porridge for Li Shen's mother, steamed a few steamed buns, and boiled 2 eggs. Since the last time the people in the barracks sent him his retirement pay and related compensation, he had repaid his family's debt. He still had some money left, so he didn't need to be as tight as before. He couldn't bear to eat the eggs, so he brought them all to Li Shen's mother. When he arrived at Li Shen's mother's room, she was already up. She was dressed neatly, her hair was combed and shiny, and she even put on her wedding hairpin. "Mother, you..." He wasn't used to Li Shen's mother suddenly being dressed so formally. Li Shen's mother smiled and said, "Sit down and eat." "Okay." Li Shen sat down beside Li Shen's mother and handed her a spoon. He took her other hand and let her touch the porridge bowl. Li Shen's mother laughed and said, "Okay, it's not like I can't eat." Li Shen peeled 2 boiled eggs for his mother. Li Shen's mother skillfully took one and put it in his bowl. "You eat too. Don't just eat me." "I've already eaten," Li Shen said. "Mother's eyes are blind, not her heart," Li Shen's mother said. Li Shen opened his mouth. "Mother." Li Shen's mother smiled sadly. "I've already packed your things. After breakfast, you can leave." Li Shen was stunned. He turned his head and looked around his mother's room. Sure enough, he saw a bundle on the bed. He was astonished. "Mother, you..." Li Du's mother smiled and said, "When you were cooking, I went to your room to clean up. Did you see if I left anything behind? Don't wait until we leave the city. We won't be able to get it even if we want to." Li Shen took a steamed bun and said, "I didn't say I was going out of the city." Mrs. Li said, "You can fool your mother, but can you fool yourself? Ever since your friend from the barracks came, you've been taking out that iron plate every day to look at it. Mother can't see it, but mother can touch it. The edges and corners of the iron plate are almost flattened by your touch." The last sentence was obviously an exaggeration, but every time Mother Li went to his room, she could feel the lingering warmth of the metal pendant. Once or twice was a coincidence, but after a while, it meant that he was constantly taking out the metal pendant to reminisce about it. Mother Li sighed. Mother isn't someone who doesn't know what's going on outside. Mother has heard that the Han family has fallen, and the Black Wind Cavalry has changed owners. To be able to return your retirement money, it should be a wise master. "Son, you should go. We can't let the bastards of Jin and Liang bully us." Li Shen's heart skipped a beat. He looked at his mother and said, "Mother." Mrs. Li blamed herself and said, "Mother has been holding you back all these years. Mother didn't go to school and can't read many words, but Mother remembers what you said before you joined the army. You said you wanted to serve the imperial court and be the bravest general of Great Yen. If it wasn't for Mother, you would have done it long ago." Li Shen hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, Mother, I..." Mrs. Li patted the back of his hand and said, Okay, don't say any more. If you continue, we won't be able to make it in time. Hurry up and eat. Don't worry about Mother. Mother can take care of herself. Mother. Go, son, do what you should do. Li Shun took a bite of the steamed bun. His throat was swollen and his eyes were dry. He tried his best to hold back his tears. No one could understand the struggle in his heart. This was his mother who gave birth to him and raised him. His father passed away early, and it was his mother who painstakingly raised him. But in the end, he couldn't fulfill his filial duties in front of his mother. Mother. He knelt on the ground with a plop, his forehead touching the ground as he heavily kowtowed 3 times. His tears dripped onto the ground with a resounding sound. Your son is unfilial. Your son can't repay Mother's kindness in raising me. He didn't know if he could come back alive from the border. Just pretend that you didn't give birth to this unfilial son. In the next life, I will be your son again. Crane Restaurant. Zhao Dengfeng was called to the kitchen to cook before the sun rose. Ever since Gu Jiao forcefully bought his restaurant, he was forced to be a cook. Every day, he was either cutting or cooking, and today was no exception. But today, he was particularly absent-minded. The Han family and the Nangong family openly rebelled and fled to the border. They colluded with the Jin and Liang kingdoms and opened the border gate. Even the crown princess, a woman, had to go to war on behalf of the emperor. The crown princess's martial arts had been crippled long ago, and she was no different from an ordinary person. No, there was still something different. An ordinary person's back would not be pierced with a few iron nails. All the troops that could be mobilized in Shangdu were gathering at the West City Gate. Mound Hill Town also sent a troop over. The deputy general of that troop was a frequent customer of Crane Restaurant. He was a guy who was full of nonsense and liked to brag and flatter. He had a lot of debts at Crane Restaurant and never had the intention to pay them back. Letting this kind of person go to war, wouldn't it be sending the rebels to their deaths? The more Zhao Dengfeng thought about it, the angrier he got. His kitchen knife swished. Beside him, Chef Zheng noticed that something was wrong. He frowned and asked, "Hey, Chef Zhao, why are you so angry? Who offended you? Don't break your knife." Zhao Dengfeng said angrily, "It's none of your business." Chef Zheng was shocked by his raised kitchen knife. Thinking that this guy had killed people before, he didn't dare to argue with him. He rolled his eyes and walked away. The messy sound of horse hooves came from the street. Why was it messy? Actually, to an ordinary person, it sounded quite orderly. But Zhao Dengfeng was a cavalryman from the Black Wind camp. He would despise even a horse's hooves. How did you lead your soldiers? How did you train your horses? With this kind of riding skill, the formation will be messed up before the battle. Chop chop chop. I'll chop. I'll chop. I'll chop 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 chop. Chop your grandpa. I won't chop any more. Zhao Dengfeng smashed the kitchen knife on the chopping board and turned to leave. At the West City Gate, the monarch led the civil and military officials to send the soldiers off. Earlier, there was a rumor among the people that the monarch was scared out of his wits and suffered a stroke on the spot because of the invasion of Jin and Liang. This news was a fatal blow to the morale and the people's hearts. It was originally a war with a slim chance of victory. If even the monarch of a country was scared out of his wits, then the great Yen kingdom would really be destroyed. But today, all the people saw the emperor in high spirits. The emperor showed up and used his actions to tell the whole world that the monarch of the great Yen kingdom was not scared out of his wits. Instead, he was filled with endless fighting spirit. The old monarch reappeared the great Yen kingdom's eagle flag and reignited the almost extinguished confidence of the people. Maybe this war could really be won? Must win. After watching the crown princess and Gu Jiao lead the army out of the West City Gate, Xiao Hang, who was behind the crowd, said to Long Yi beside him, "We should also set off." Long Yi held a box of charcoal pencil and stared blankly for a long time until he could no longer see the back view of Gu Jiao. Xiao Hang and his Grey Tans group all went east. After leaving Liaozhou, both sides separated into 2 groups. Xiao Hang, Long Yi and Wang Su's army often went to the northeast Blue Snow Pass. As for Ongwa Duke, his Grey Tant's group as well as Feng Wuxiu's army, they went to the southeast Red Water Pass. Taoist priest Qing Feng also followed. After Shangguan Yan and Gu Jiao's group left Chengdu, the first news they received from the border was from Yuzhou, which was 100 miles away. At that time, they had just set up camp outside a village. The kind-hearted villagers invited them to live in the village, but Shangguan Yan refused. Shangguan Yan sat in her tent. On her left side was the general of infantry, Wang Man. He was Wang Su's uncle and was a veteran. Wang family was not a military aristocratic family. In Wang Man's generation, he was the only one who learned martial arts. And in Wang Su's generation, only Wang Su inherited his martial arts. But in those years, Wang Man had followed Shenyuan Li to battle and had the experience of fighting against the armies of Jin and Liang. Therefore, the monarch suggested to bring this person and conferred him the title of General Jianwei. He was the highest-ranking general in the camp. He had many military merits and was rather conceited. He almost didn't look at anyone other than the crown princess, especially the youngest Gu Jiao. On his other side sat General Wei Junting of the archery camp. He was 38 years old this year. On the right side of Shangguan Yan were Gu Jiao and Mu Qingchen. Mu Qingchen was the personal bodyguard of the crown princess. He was mainly responsible for the safety of the crown princess and had no official position in the camp. Gu Chengfeng didn't come for the time being. Before the monarch recovered, he had to play the role of the monarch and stay in Chengdu to stabilize the morale of the army and the people. Shangguan Yan said, "Just now, I sent an urgent secret letter. Everyone has read it. I don't know what everyone thinks about it." Wang Man said angrily, "Humph. The Nangong family has gone too far. They actually used the name of justice to fool the people at the border. It's really shameless. There were not many wars in Chengdu. Most of the things about the Shenyuan family were heard. But the border had experienced countless wars. Everyone saw how the Shenyuan family fought to the death to protect the people at the border. After the Shenyuan family was exterminated, the border was filled with whales. The Nangong family took advantage of this. After coming to the border, they first announced that the monarch had exterminated the Shenyuan family because of a prophecy, and then lied that they had just received the news. It turned out that they had been deceived by the monarch all these years. They wanted to avenge the Shenyuan family. What's more, they claimed that there were still people alive in the Shenyuan family and that they were protecting them in the dark. They were willing to fight for the descendants of the Shenyuan family. Even if they had to sacrifice their lives, they wanted to choose a real monarch for the great Yen kingdom. The people were persuaded. They opened the city gate and directly welcomed the Nangong family's army into the city. Many of the guards in the city were former subordinates of the Shenyuan family. Since they were here to avenge the Shenyuan family, everyone was on the same side. The Nangong family took over Ziyang City in the Yanmen Pass almost effortlessly. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-89642-826/1059145560. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gur mobile version website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 827. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. Nangong family used the State Preceptor Hall's prophecy to clear the obstacles for themselves. She had to say, this trick seemed to be nothing new, but it was very useful. In ancient times, to revolt, the safest operation was to borrow the name of heaven. The husband is the boat, and the people are the water. The water can carry the boat, but it can also overturn it. Never underestimate the power of the people's hearts. Shangguan Yan's eyes passed the old General Wang Man and fell on Wei Junting's face. What does General Wei think? Wei Junting said with a dignified look, Nangong family has seized a wave of opportunity. If this continues, we will lose more cities. It's easy for them to take it, but it will be difficult for us to take it back. The border cities were carefully designed to prevent the invasion of foreign enemies. They were easy to defend and difficult to attack. In addition, Nangong family's army was waiting for the exhausted, so their combat power would be better. Shangguan Yan looked at Gu Jiao again. Commander Xiao, what do you think? Gu Jiao looked at the map on the table and pointed to the west of Yanmen Pass. The Liang country's garrison has advanced 100 feet to the border. They have already crossed the border. The reason why they haven't broken through Yanmen Pass is because their military strength is not strong enough. They are the same as us. The Imperial Army is on the way. We must seize the opportunity and recapture Chuyang before the Liang country's Imperial Army arrives at the border. Shangguan Yan nodded in agreement. Wang Man disdainfully snorted, a child is a child. Who can't think of such a simple method? Why do you think I didn't say it? Gu Jiao seriously thought for a moment. Are you afraid? Ignorant brat. Wang Man slammed his palm on the table and leaped up. Wei Junting hurriedly got up and stopped him. General Wang. General Wang. Calm down. Calm down. Shangguan Yan looked at Wang Man and said, General Wang, do you want to use force in front of this one? You dare to scare my daughter-in-law, you're tired of living. Wei Junting continued to be the peacemaker. Commander Xiao and Great General Wang are just joking. Great General Wang is a magnanimous person. Please don't bicker with the younger generation. Humph. Because the Crown Princess was present, Wang Man was given a way out, but he still reluctantly came down. The two of them sat back on their cushions. Shangguan Yan knew Gu Jiao very well. She knew that Gu Jiao would not talk nonsense. Since she proposed it, it meant that she already had a plan in mind. However, what Wang Man said was not wrong. This plan did not work. Shangguan Yan pointed to the map and said, We are now in this place. If we rush to Chuyang City, it will take us a month. If we force our way, it will take us more than 20 days. The Liang Kingdom's army is not that far from the border. They will arrive in less than 20 days. Gu Jiao said, According to the speed of the whole army, we can't catch up, but the Black Wind Cavalry can. The Black Wind Cavalry will only need half a month to reach Chuyang. Shangguan Yan was slightly surprised. You want to force the army? The cavalry's speed was faster than the infantry, but in order to ensure the horses' combat power, they can't ride too fast. If they rush, it will take at least 20 days, half a month. It will overdraft the horses' physical strength. No, we still have to force the army. Gu Jiao pointed to the map and said, If we pass through the mountain range in Liuzhou, it will be a straight line. We can reach Chuyang's Feng County. Wang Man was dissatisfied. That mountain range is very dangerous. So far, no army has ever passed through it. I passed through it, Gu Jiao said in her heart. In her dream, the Shenyuan army paid a great price to pass through that mountain range. This time, she knew how to avoid those dangers. Wang Man cupped his hands and said, Your Highness the Crown Princess, this is not a trivial matter. I don't care what means he used to become the Black Wind Cavalry's commander, but war is not a child's play. He can't just take it for granted and let the entire Black Wind Battalion be buried in his hands. After all, the Black Wind Battalion was their most powerful force. If this kid doesn't know how to command, then let someone else take command. Don't waste such a good military resource. Shangguan Yan turned her head and looked at Gu Jiao. Are you sure? Mu Qingchen's eyes slightly moved. He heard the Crown Princess's trust in Gu Jiao. This made him puzzled. I'm sure. Gu Jiao said with certainty. Shangguan Yen nodded. That's good. Wang Man's face changed. Your Highness the Crown Princess. Shangguan Yen said, this one has made up her mind. General Wang, you don't need to persuade me. This one will bear all the consequences. At this point, even if Wang Man wanted to stop her, he couldn't pull out his sword and force the Crown Princess to change her mind. Humph. He stood up, with one hand behind his back, and the other hand patted his thigh back and forth twice to vent his dissatisfaction. Then, with a cold face, he left. Gu Jiao stared at him. You're simply treating the battlefield as a child's play. Xiao Lulang is like this, and the Crown Princess is also like this. I really don't know why His Majesty sent a woman to fight on his behalf. Is there no prince in the royal family? Li Wang, Su Wang, and Wang. Which one of them is not better than a crippled Crown Princess? Wang Man said this after he left the tent. But the people in the tent had good hearing. Wei Junting smiled awkwardly. Shangguan Yan's expression didn't change much. She said to Wei Junting, you can leave. This one has something to say to Commander Xiao. Yes, this one will take his leave. Wei Junting got up and saluted, then turned and left the tent. Mu Qingchen also got up. Shangguan Yan said, Mu Qingchen, you stay. This one also has something to tell you. Half an hour later, Mu Qingchen and Gu Jiao came out of Shangguan Yan's tent. At this time, the sky was completely dark. The soldiers made a fire and made dinner. After eating, they rested and patrolled. The two walked on the path in the middle of the tent. Teacher who greeted them, Darren, have you had dinner? This one left some steamed buns for you. I've eaten. Gu Jiao said, leave it here. I'll eat it tomorrow morning. Teacher who was stunned, ah yes. How can I let you eat it? Can't I eat it myself? Mu Qingchen frowned and looked at Gu Jiao. I really don't understand you. Gu Jiao glanced at him strangely. You don't need to understand me. Mu Qingchen was choked by her words. Fortunately, he was used to it. While walking side by side with her, he said, I apologize to you about Nangong Li. Although the fact that Nangong family colluded with the crown prince and framed the real imperial grandson was not announced to the world as the legitimate son of one of the 10 great families, he had heard a little about it. However, he didn't know that the real imperial grandson was Xiao Hang and Shangguan Qing. Gu Jiao, oh. Mu Qingchen said with shame, did you kill Nangong Li because you found out his conspiracy? Forget it, it doesn't matter. Because of this matter, I misunderstood you as a person with ulterior motives. It's my fault. In fact, Gu Jiao didn't care about his misunderstanding, but he apologized so sincerely that if she didn't say anything, he would keep apologizing. Gu Jiao scratched her head. I forgive you. Mu Qingchen smiled and stopped to look at her. Then, are we still friends? Gu Jiao hesitated for a moment, rolled her eyes, and reluctantly said, yes. What do you mean by yes? Mu Qingchen was startled. Gu Jiao spread her hands and said, I'm your boss now. You can't overstep your superiors and subordinates. You have to stick to your duty. Mu Qingchen, Shangguan Yan was worried about her dear daughter-in-law, so she sent Mu Qingchen, who was supposed to protect her, to Gu Jiao's side. She asked him to go with Gu Jiao to attack Zuyang City. Gu Jiao was the commander. He was her follower. Gu Jiao imitated Wang Man's official gait and strode forward. With one hand behind her back, the other hand impatiently patted her thigh back and forth twice. Humph. She didn't even let out a humph. Mu Qingchen, before dawn the next day, Gu Jiao ordered all the Black Wind cavalry to break camp. Shangguan Yen originally insisted on going with Gu Jiao, but was rejected by Gu Jiao. Shangguan Yan's back was pierced with 8 vertebral screws, so she had to wear armor when going out. The rapid march of the cavalry would drag her down. In addition, as the crown princess, she could collect more local troops along the way. Even if she didn't have enough troops, she could at least buy more provisions. This was going to be a tough battle, so the provisions must be provided. 3 days before the Black Wind cavalry set out, the weather was fine. On the fourth day, the army encountered a sudden autumn rain. Fortunately, Gu Jiao knew how to observe the weather and arranged for everyone to take shelter from the rain in advance. On the 11th day, the Black Wind cavalry arrived at the foot of the Luding mountain range, the largest mountain range in Liuzhou. The map was useless here. Because no one had entered this mountain range, naturally there was no detailed map. Everyone was on standby. Along the way, their impression of Gu Jiao had changed, but they still had a lot of reservations. In the past, the Han family's commanders were more beautiful than Gu Jiao, but in the end, what happened? The Han family rebelled. They admitted that the redisplay of the Shenyuan family's commander flag was really exciting. But they had been disappointed too many times, so they had already calmed down from the initial excitement. Perhaps, this was just a way to boost morale. Who would really fight for the Shenyuan family? Even the Nangong family was using the Shenyuan family's name for their own benefit. Everyone looked at this new commander, waiting for him to continue his nonsense. They wanted to see if this little commander would be so anxious that he would cry if he was trapped inside and couldn't get out. Mu Qingchen looked around and whispered, "That, they don't seem to trust you." Gu Jiao said, "Oh." Gu Jiao said to Mu Qingchen, "We have 3 days to pass through the mountain range. After that, the army will rest for a day. We won't stop in Feng County and will directly attack the city." 3 days. Is it enough? Mu Qingchen looked at the endless mountain range and thought that they might not be able to walk out in 13 days. No wonder the cavalry didn't trust him. Even he felt that it was difficult enough. Gu Jiao said, "Whether it's enough or not, we'll know when we get there. Boss, let's go." The forest was filled with the howls of wild beasts. The horses could instinctively sense the danger in the forest. However, just like how Gu Jiao trusted the Black Wind King wholeheartedly, the Black Wind King also trusted his companions without reservation. The Black Wind King raised his front hooves and jumped over the 6-feet-wide ditch easily. He stepped into the dense forest without looking back. Digression, Black Wind Cavalry Baby 1. Boss is leaving. Black Wind Cavalry Baby 2. Then, shall we go too? The cavalry who didn't want to go. You may not believe me, but my horse has its own thoughts. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642/826/1059134331. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.